Give me a second. I need to make sure we're live on Twitch and YouTube. I'm like casting a blank screen. Oops. Okay, there we go. Give me one more second. Okay. We are live on YouTube. Okay, cool. Got it. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Mandy, I don't even know if you know what I was talking about in the group chat. I was attacked by a dog yesterday. It was very dramatic. The fire department.
Gosh.
Yeah, the fire department, like while running, like this dog, well, he had a choke chain on and they did find his owner, like, which is sad because you're a terrible owner. But yeah, it was crazy. And I have like all these cuts and scratches on my legs. And now I'm on antibiotics again, which is actually kind of good because maybe it will help with my lung infection.
Oh, right. I mean,
so I'm like, actually, two birds with one, because
we avoid going to the doctor for what we should, and then we get forced to by a dog.
No, I did go for the lung.
Did you go back?
No. I mean, I did one round of antibiotics and then lung steroids, and then I was thinking about it because it wasn't working about going back, and then the dog thing happened. My doctor's like, "How's your lung infection?" I was like, "Yeah, it's still there." So she's like, "This will help both." I'm like, "Great."
Well, that's good.
Yeah, so it's all working out. Here, is this are these in the right?
I will turn my camera on in a minute.
Oh no, yeah, no.
I swear I do my makeup during these lives. I don't know why. I don't get to it until later, and so.
Do what you feel. Everyone tap the screen. Just a reminder to Joanna's daughter, our lovely mod, Joanna Shante, in the comments that we all know and love. Her daughter is having a baby in about 3 weeks. And the baby registry is in my link tree and any of my bios. If you would like to help us raise a child, because this is the closest I'll ever get. Please feel free to check out the baby registry. I think it's like the second thing in my link tree. Oh, and one other housekeeping thing. I was going to show this article first, but maybe here, let me turn on the casting. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. Quick housekeeping thing. I said this in the Discord yesterday, but if you're not in there, and I'll try to remember to remind everyone, if everyone could follow this account, or friend, whatever we call it. I don't go on Facebook, so I don't know. Friend my account on Facebook. It's like Felice Navidad. This is it. I think you can just search that way. I completely forgot how to use Facebook, but I'm thinking that, like, I was checking the rules, and to go to live stream to Facebook, you need you have to have an account for 60 days. And now this account, like, I made it almost exactly 60 days ago. And then you need 100 followers. We're at 82. So literally we're so close. We just need 18 more friends. They're not follows, friends, or whatever they're called on Facebook. And then in theory, I believe I should be able to push the lives to Facebook. I hate Mark Zuckerberg, but thank you for the hat. As the midterms gets closer, the more I think about it, and we need to reach people in these, rural areas or local areas. I think that it'll be useful to be able to live stream to Facebook. So that's the goal, is to get to 100 Facebook friends by tomorrow, so that for the people's receipts, we can push your your account was mass reported on TikTok or on Facebook. I know. I don't think the message is going to be received well on Facebook.
Oh, it's the Wild West over there.
I know, and they're already finding like this account. I just consider it my business account, but I feel like people from my like my evangelical childhood are like finding me, and I'm like, here we go. This is just, I already know this is going to become an absolute disaster. Like, I already see it looming. But yeah, I just think leading up to the midterms, it'll be good to live stream on Facebook, and if we reach even a couple people, then we've done something. So that's the goal. So I know many of you helped me in the Discord yesterday, but if you haven't friended me on Facebook, I can't even get the words right, then please do. I'm trying to get to 100 friends so then we can push our live streams there and annoy everyone on Facebook. I should have just made this like a flea market account. I feel like that's every account on Facebook. It's like flea market plus people talking about politics and screaming at each other. Thank you, Farah. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Risa. Thank you, Wolverine. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you, Summer. Yeah, just
I'm always surprised how many people rely on like Facebook Marketplace, because like I've never gotten anything off of Facebook Marketplace, but like my mom's in her new assisted living apartment or whatever, and she's there independently. She has somebody that comes in once a week, but she needs some stuff. And she's like, well, I found a table that was like affordable. I'm like, where did you find it? Facebook Marketplace. I'm like, who are these people? Like, no, please don't just like show up at somebody's house, Mom.
I've lived a lot of places. I talk about it all the time. I lived in Sioux Falls, South Dakota for a year. And yeah, like that's how I furnished my apartment. And it's like, everyone's so trusting. People just give you their address and they're like, yeah, show up. It's crazy. Now looking back, I'm like, yeah, that was pretty crazy. But I did use it in Sioux Falls.
My mom had an experience like that years ago, and I don't know if it was through Facebook Marketplace or why she was stopping at this person's house. I thought it was like a marketplace situation, and she didn't tell me at the time. I don't know exactly how long ago this was, but she's like, she walks in because she was just supposed to like, I think somebody bought something from her, and she's supposed to drop it off and grab the money. And she walks in, and some dude yells for her to come into the other room, and he is butt ass naked.
What? Oh, that's
and I was
scary.
like, Mom, that's assault. Like, that is, like, you don't, like, you can't. I'm like, did you report it? Well, no, I just ran out of there. I'm like, Mom, like, you should be reporting that to whatever entity they were, like, buying through. You should have reported that. Like, that's not okay. But I, of course, didn't know about it until after the fact. And so to this day, I'm like, I don't want you just, like, getting in touch with random people to get their belongings, like, you know.
I know, especially it's not safe. It's not safe at all. But okay, yeah. We're waiting for Dani. Dani will be here any second. She's just running. She was seeing a patient and is running a little bit behind. So, but you know what I didn't realize, and I just wanted to cover, this is actually just the internet. This isn't my presentation. And I just thought I'd pull this up. When I was talking last week about this situation, right, there's the Ken Paxton in Texas is suing a New York doctor, for shield laws. And that's based on the doctor's name on the medication bottle. And then last week, after Dani had to leave, I was talking to you guys about this case in Louisiana that's an actual criminal case where a criminal jury, a grand jury indicted this doctor and the mother of the girl who received the AB pill through the mail. Well, it's the same doctor. And like this, which makes perfect sense. It's like, so I didn't realize it's the same doctor. They're basically targeting this woman. They were, and which makes sense. They're looking for like, who's, the head of the snake, let's say. And I just wanted to show you guys because I was like, oh, this makes way more sense. They basically chose this doctor and her organization, and they're just going to like target her over and over, I think. Let me find the doctor. Yeah, here we go. Carpenter. Her name's Maggie. I believe her first name's Maggie. Carpenter is a co-founder of the AB Coalition for Telemedicine, or ACT, ACT,
Yeah.
right? And they're shielded by New York Shield laws, which basically protect doctors who practice telemedicine and help people in maternal deserts, get AB care or other types of care. It was founded in 2022, ACT. And this is, you can look it up. Again, it's AB Coalition for Telemedicine. So it's a pretty cool organization and a cool cause. They were founded in 2022 after Roe v. Wade was overturned, opening the door for states to ban AB. The nonprofit's website says Carpenter is one of the 3 co-founders who, quote, have harnessed their collective medical and legal expertise to meet this moment. So it's a really cool nonprofit I think we should support. And then another co-founder, her name is Julie Kay, who is also executive director. Oh, I guess I can make this bigger. Sometimes I can't enlarge, but I can. Who is also executive director, said in a statement about the Texas order, despite ongoing attempts by anti-AB state officials to restrict access to AB care, particularly medication ABs, we want to be clear. Medication ABs remain safe, legal, and available via telemedicine. So these are like vigilante doctors fighting for women. I love this.
Yeah.
And I wanted to
and that is something important just for everyone to know. It is still legal, and you can go through places like Mayday Health, Plan C. Like, you can still get that, and you can get it even if you're not pregnant. So you can be preemptive, get it preemptively for yourself, for those in your those in your family, friends, somebody who might need it. And you should have that. Like, I was always really cautious to like really push people to do it because I don't want to like overload this because there are pregnant people who need it more urgently, of course. But now we're getting into a time frame where they are really coming for it. So get it in your medicine cabinet while you can. It's good. Usually it's shelf stable for at least 2 years. And yeah, it can't hurt. And in my case, like, I have it. Mine's probably about a year. I'm about a year in on mine. And so if it gets closer to that shelf stable date, I will donate it to a clinic, like a Planned Parenthood or something.
Yay, so. Dani's here. Keep tapping the screen. Tapping is clapping. Let's get to 50K as fast as possible. We so appreciate your guys' support. Please share the live as many times as possible as well. Help us meet gift goals. I'm trying to get some of my subscribers back now that TikTok is back in the App Store. I used to have like 650. I think I have like 133. I'm trying to get to 200. So if you would like to subscribe, that will also help us get to the For You page. Any way you can interact with the live, the heart me's. I'm actually still not even sure how to do that. Do your heart me's, all of that stuff to help us get more people in here. It is much, much appreciated. Yeah, we're talking about the doctor. I didn't realize it was the same doctor, Dani. The same doctor that Ken Paxton is suing is the same one indicted in Louisiana. Yeah,
it's Dr. Carpenter. And the thing that I was listening to y'all talk about it as I was like trying to get all my stuff together this morning. So I've been listening for a little bit, and I know that we've talked about this before, like Yumi and Mandy have talked about it. And I think we've also talked about it on the show before, but something that I think cannot go unsaid is that the case in Texas, the reason that the case in Texas came about is because there was a serious HIPAA violation. This was a 20-year-old woman that, to be fair, and this is something that like misinformation spreading in the media, right? They said that Kim Paxton is saying that she experienced complications of the medication and had to go to the ER. That is not true. That's one of the ways that we know that they are manipulating research. If you read research about mifepristone and the complications that come from it, some of the studies that they're using to say that mifepristone has these like high complication rates, it's if anybody goes to the hospital or the urgent care or their doctor for any reason after taking the medication. Well, very, very frequently, there's a lot of bleeding, there's a lot of cramping, right? And that freaks people out. If people have never experienced that before, if they're having a lot of pain, they might be like, is this pain normal? Is this amount of bleeding normal? right? And so they're basically just going to the ER to get reassurance. This is normal. You're okay. Call us if things get worse or whatever, right? That is not a complication. That is a patient going for information and education and being sent home. Okay, right? And there are, I can put it in the chat as well, but there is a miscarriage and AV support line that you can call so that you don't have to go to the ER or the urgent care if you are going to be doing something like that, or even if you're just having a miscarriage. It's called like the MA hotline, Felice. So
What's it called? So how do you, what word
the
did you say?
the MA hotline or MNA hotline, you should just be able to type in like miscarriage and a hotline and it'll pop right
This
up.
one
I'm
right
sure.
here, probably.
If you pull it up, I'll be, yep,
This
that's
one?
it right there.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Everyone screenshot this. The number's right here in the corner. Oh, there's a click to call, or it looks like this is the number here if you want to screenshot it.
So you could call that, right? But oftentimes people get freaked out. They don't know that this exists. And so they go to the urgent care, they go to the ER to make sure everything's okay. And all you do is say, yep, this is normal, everything's okay. Maybe give them a little bit of something for the pain, like ibuprofen or Toradol or something like that. And then they go home, right? So this 20-year-old went to the ER for that reason. She was like, is this normal? And her partner, whether or not they were still together or not, I don't know. It doesn't sound like they lived together, but this was the 20-year-old woman that went to the ER. She called the partner and said, you know, I'm going to the ER. He went to the ER and the nurse came out and said, well, she was this many weeks pregnant and she's having a miscarriage. He then suspected that she may have done something to cause the miscarriage, went to her house and searched her house and found this pill bottle. And it's from that pill bottle that they got Dr. Carpenter's name. And that's where the lawsuit came from. So he should have never been told what was going on with her in the emergency department in the first place. If I'm married and I go to the ER and my husband shows up and says, I'm here for my wife, she's in the ER, they cannot tell him what they are treating me for, even if it's my husband, because that's my private medical information. And you never know. People could be in an abusive situation. Same thing with parents, right? Like if we have a kid that comes in, we usually try to interview the kids separate from the parents because we want to know what the kid's story is of what happened and are they safe and do they feel okay and all these other things. So this should have never happened in the first place as far as the Texas case goes. And in the Louisiana case, allegedly, it's a minor that the pills were given to. I don't know if they were prescribed to the minor. Given to. I don't know if they were prescribed to the minor. Given to. I don't know if they were prescribed to the minor. As an AFAB person, if it relates to pregnancy or getting pregnant or a miscarriage or something, you're not getting the healthcare privacy that you're supposed to be getting. And so now New York and I was texting you about it, like both of you about it. I can't remember who else, but New York and a handful of other states are now putting forward bills. And it's because of cases like this, because when they find the prescription label in these red states, that's how they're getting the doctors' names to sue them. So this is another one of those like shield laws. When we see these blue states coming up with all of these shield laws to protect providers, you saw New York's mayor saying, I'm not going to extradite this doctor. Like I won't be doing it. It's never going to happen. That doctor can now no longer go to Louisiana or Texas ever again, but like whatever. But that's why they're putting forth these other shield laws. So that way they don't have to extradite doctors. They're not going to give them any medical information. They're not going to give them your medical records. And now hopefully they can keep their names off of the prescription labels.
If it's buffering for you guys, I don't know. My internet connection is strong and TikTok's not telling me that there's an issue because it warns you if your internet connection is messed up. Maybe go back in and come out. Because yeah, I don't think it shouldn't be my internet, at least that I can tell. TikTok tells me when it is. Thank you for following me. If you're not following me, follow me right now. Yeah, I wanted to just add to that. Yeah, with the story in Texas again, yeah, her HIPAA, like her medical information was given to not even a husband, which like you said is still a HIPAA violation, but a boyfriend who then went and searched her house. You can find this story and read all about it. They didn't live together. Like he went to her house, her apartment, searched it, found in the garbage the boxes, the medication, and then like took it and sounded the alarm. So these are things to think about. Like if you're ever going to be in this situation, never think, that you're safe. Like, and it's sad that this is the society that we live in and this is being encouraged, but this is literally the reality. Basically, Ken Paxton chose a doctor who is the head of ACT, which is such a cool organization and nonprofit. It's headed by 3 women. Thank you, Chris, for subscribing. Appreciate you so much. You're the best. I'll call you later. Miss you. So basically chose this doctor. It's this nonprofit's headed by 3 women. Then he's got his friends in Louisiana to target her as well with a criminal indictment, which is crazy. This is crazy town. So these are just all things we need to think about. And thank you for this resource. So again, this is a hotline if you ever are using the AB pill, if you're in a maternal health desert where you would fear that your medical privacy would be violated. If you went to a hospital and you have questions, it's mahotline.org. And then if anyone needs this resource, bookmark it and have it ready for friends and family. I think that's the best we could do for now. And then I wanted to talk about next. Let me go to the actual presentation now and off the internet. I wanted to talk quickly because, man, I don't know how much more data we're going to be able to get, but some Dani was pointing out a JAMA study today that is absolutely horrific that has come out, which we've been talking about this and all indications, for months, like all the data that has been coming out in little bits was pretty much showing that this was going to be the case. But basically, it's a study of US AB bans and infant mortality, meaning the rate at which infants unalive, right? And after birth. And the news is not good. Actually, so basically this analysis of US national vital statistics data, and they took data from 2012 to 2023, found higher than expected infant mortality in states after adoption of AB bans.
That paper is more sophisticated.
Observed is 6.26 versus expected, which is 5.93 per 1,000 live births. Relative increase, 5.6%. Do you understand how scary that is? Now,
that's a big increase.
That's terrifying. These are the people, these are the pro-life conservatives who want more babies because they're in population decline. And these AB bans and maternal health deserts are having the opposite effect.
And go ahead, Mandy, go.
What I can't help but think about too is the reason, like, we see these numbers go up, and I already know what the right will say. Well, there's more babies being born. No, you're forcing more people to give birth to babies that are not going to survive. You are torturing more parents to have to experience that loss because you won't let them take the necessary steps when the doctor finds that it's not compatible with life or whatever the case may be. You're creating situations where you are choosing under the guise of life to torture people. So of course you're going to see those numbers increase, because fewer are being aborted in those situations because they're not being terminated, but they're going to lose their lives after because they're not compatible in some way. So I can never hear those statistics without just thinking about the absolutely devastating effect this has on people on very wanted pregnancies. Because, that's what's happening in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and if you read here at the bottom, another interesting part, estimated increases were relatively larger among infants who were Black, had congenital anomalies, which makes sense, and were born in southern states.
I mean, all of which makes sense.
Yeah, that's the thing about data. It always makes perfect sense. And then I mean, the results category is interesting. And again, this is all in today's outline in the Discord if you want access to this study, or you can just look it up in JAMA. But the analysis found higher than expected infant mortality in states after adoption of AB bans. Wait, there was a part I wanted to read. This resulted in an estimated 478 excess infant unalivings in the 14 states with bans during the months affected by bans. 478 infant unaliving excess than were expected in the 14 states with the AB bans. The estimated increases were higher among non-Hispanic Black infants compared with other racial and ethnic groups, which that tracks with 11.81 observed versus 10.66 expected. God, that is so much higher than the average. And this stuff makes me want to cry. I'm sorry. But again, this is the data that Trump is trying to hide, right? When you black out medical research, CDC data, you stop analyzing these cases with the maternal mortality review committees.
The MMRCs.
Yeah, the MMRCs. Thank you. This is the stuff that they're trying to hide. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And our rate is horrible compared to other the developed world. Yeah, we're awful.
I think the next, and I haven't looked at the other countries. It's often the best way that we can get data from other countries is when somebody does the legwork and compiles these nice little graphs that we have, right? Otherwise you have to search down each individual country and you have to find where they publish their data and all that stuff. But I think the next closest country to us is France, and our maternal mortality numbers, the maternal mortality, I always have to remind people of this. It's calculated as a rate. It's not a percentage. It's a rate. So it's 1 per 100,000 is the rate, right? So it's how many unalivings happen to the pregnant person due to the pregnancy or a pregnancy complication within 42 days of giving birth, because that's 6 weeks postpartum. So it's 1 unaliving per 100,000 live births, right? That's how we calculate the maternal mortality rate. So the rate in the US right now is about 24. I think it's 24.3, something like that. The next closest country to us is France, and their rate is something like 8. So we are 3 times higher than any other country. Now people will say, well, we have a lot more people. Our country is so much bigger, right? This is a rate. This is a rate. This is per 100,000, right? This isn't a raw number. If you were looking at raw numbers, of course we would have higher raw numbers. We have more people. This is a rate. So this is comparable because other countries are measuring their rates the exact same way. And France, I think, usually comes in second, and theirs is 3 times lower than ours. And something to keep in mind with these, because it says later on in this study, as of November 2024, 13 states have banned AB completely. 4 more have restricted it at 6 weeks gestation, which is a complete ban as far as all 3 of us are concerned, with evidence of 2 to 3% increase in live births above expectation in the states that have banned AB. So we have a 2 to 3% increase in live birth, but we have a 6% increase in infant mortality. That's not great, but mortality isn't the only thing that we're worried about, right? We're also worried about maternal morbidity. And like Mandy said, you're forcing people to carry these doomed pregnancies. That comes with a risk to the mother as well, right? That comes with a risk to the pregnant person. If you're forcing them to continue a non-viable pregnancy that's threatening their health, Kate Cox is a great example, the case that came out of Texas. She had a non-viable pregnancy. Multiple doctors came forward and said, if you continue this pregnancy, it could put your life at risk and your future fertility. And Texas still wouldn't allow her to get a termination. So now we know that Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, the states that have the highest poverty levels, right? Often the states that have the lowest OB numbers, the states that have high numbers of maternal health deserts, We're also worrying about the morbidity, the co-occurring long-term chronic health issues that are going to happen for these mothers. Like Mandy had cardiomyopathy, right, Mandy? Like after
Yeah.
having her twins, and it wasn't diagnosed for a long time even.
Right.
So these are long-term things that people live with after getting pregnant. We also worry about the morbidity of the infants. They're being born into states that cut Medicaid funding, that cut Medicare funding. They cut federal funding for healthcare all around, right? And now you're going to be you're going to have an infant that's born with a serious disability that needs care and might need lifelong care. Are you going to get good healthcare in Louisiana, in Mississippi? I doubt it, right? I doubt you're going to get the support you need. So what are these families going to do? Now they have a permanently disabled child. And I think that the anti-choice movement likes to say a lot of stuff about like, well, this is discrimination against disabled people, blah, 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 blah. We are talking about pregnancies that are generally not compatible with life, right? Infants that are living for hours, maybe a few days, and being given what we call palliative care, which is like end of life pain care to keep them comfortable. For what? To put the parents through trauma?
And I just wanted to point, this is from the National Institute of Health, right? Like, God knows we won't be getting many more of these studies, or National Library of Medicine. And this is called the impact of hostile AB legislation on the United States maternal mortality crisis, a call for increased AB education. And yeah, like I talk about this all the time, like being a historical researcher and working with my professors. I also took a lot of sociology classes because there's a lot, historical sociology matters. And I talk a lot about social engineering. Like the point of Project 2025 is social engineering, right? And what this abstract and this study is talking about is how these AB restrictions, these maternal health deserts, disproportionately affect too, which is the conservative goal, right? These restrictions disproportionately affect low income people of color, immigrants, and non-English speakers, and have the potential to exacerbate already existing racial inequities in maternal and neonatal outcomes. Isn't this the goal? You know what I'm saying? Like, isn't this what they want to happen? And it's terrifying.
That's kind of what we consistently say is like the cruelty is the point, right? Like that's the point. The point of this is the cruelty of it. It's to say like we have complete control. You're helpless, particularly to AFAB people. Like we know that Project 2025 absolutely despises women and AFAB people. So this is just a way of gaining control, keeping people fearful, and also keeping us from working together, right? Like if people are afraid of getting charged for helping a friend, for driving a friend, for giving a friend money to cross state lines, then this is kind of very similar to like Germany at a certain time, right? Where everybody was really, really nervous to help their neighbor or be honest with their neighbor and have authentic conversations with their neighbor because they were afraid that they were going to get turned in.
I mean, literally, exactly. That's kind of, I mean, when you read through this, I suggest this is a great thing. I was reading this yesterday. It's just disturbing. Yeah, it is. I agree. It's meant to isolate us. And it basically, if you groups that lack upward mobility or social acceptance and community, and access to healthcare will suffer disproportionately and be socially engineered out of existence. Like, I don't know what could be more sad. Let me get back to the presentation, and we can start and talk about, do you want to talk about the trans stuff first? Because I think that's pretty interesting. As long as we're on that topic, we can start at the civil rights stuff at the end and then go for it. So, there we go. I'm not the USAID stuff, just this stuff. I think this is right. Yeah. So, and if you don't know, I suggest Kyle Cheney. His name is Kyle D. Cheney, and I'm pretty sure he's on Blue Sky as well. He's a lawyer. He's great. Like he's a lawyer, a reporter. He does all sorts. He's always following court cases, and he's been specifically tracking all of these lawsuits opposing what Doge is doing and Trump's executive orders. In this one, he's particularly talking about the lawsuit that's being brought to oppose Trump's executive order against the transgender community, right? And it's interesting to read some of these court documents, and I love him because he reads them and then highlights like the good parts, so you don't have to pour over court documents. But this one, basically, this is I believe from yesterday. A federal judge in Washington State who blocked Trump's executive order regarding transgender health care says it's unconstitutional in multiple ways, including usurping Congress's power of the purse. So, I mean, I guess this is encouraging because the judge is writing in here, and citing precedent and saying, hey, what Trump is doing is very unconstitutional against the transgender community. And this is the fascinating part that I want to show you guys. The judge says Trump's executive order on transgender healthcare would create a perverse situation in which a cisgender person could get puberty blockers to treat, say, cancer, but a transgender person could not get the same puberty blockers to treat cancer. Like, hello? Quite literally. Oh, and I want to find the screenshot of this. Wait, I'm sorry. I think I have to go backwards. Oh, yeah. Here we go. That a cisgender teen who needs puberty blockers in the course of cancer treatment could receive them from federally funded institutions. But a transgender teen who needs puberty blockers due to same diagnosis and not to align with the teen's gender identity could not. If this is not federal discrimination of a minority group, I don't know what is. It's literally, and here's the worst part about it. So in the footnote, Kyle Cheney highlights the footnote. Read this footnote. It says, defendants could not offer an alternative interpretation of the order's text when asked about it at the hearing. Like the judge basically like, hey, am I reading this wrong? Because it seems horrible. And they're like, nope, you read it right.
I think that one of the things that I kind of often think about is we should be really calling these like hormone blockers, right? This idea of like puberty blockers is like sort of pigeonholing this group of medications, this really big group of medications, into saying like this is what they're used for. They're used as puberty blockers. That is one use of some of these medications, right? But hormone blockers are used for a lot of different things. They're used to treat endometriosis, for one thing, because we think that endometriosis is like, again, we don't have good research on endometriosis, do we? Because we don't fund women's healthcare. But we do know that the endometrial lining responds to hormones. So sometimes they'll use hormone blockers to treat people that have endometriosis. And I always also like to remind people that these hormone blockers are very, very readily used by gym bros all the time, right? They're used in PCT, post-cycle therapy. So when gym bros take anabolic, I don't know if I can say this, S words, when they take these things to get an advantage in the gym or to build muscle, often men specifically have to take PCT, a post-cycle therapy, when they're coming off of that, because it's a way to get your body back to producing its own hormones and getting you back into like a good hormonal space, right? Men use these all the time. They use things like tamoxifen and stuff like that to be hormone blockers, right? So like all these men sitting here saying, oh, these trans people and these hormone blockers, how could they? How could they? You're too stupid, and I truly believe this, that they're too stupid to realize they are using the exact same medication.
It's really to understand the arguments that's being presented in the courts. I mean, that's essentially what they're saying is, hey, these medications are readily available to other citizens for the same exact issues. and actually the Supreme Court, I mean, the Supreme Court ruled, right? It like sent it back to the federal court, that case. That's what they were basically saying. That I can't remember the child's name. It was a trans child from Tennessee. I remember the recent Supreme Court oral arguments that were, I mean, they haven't ruled on it yet, but the oral arguments did not seem to be going the way of like the transgender teen. But I can't remember their name. Oh well. But basically, that was the fundamental argument that was being made, is like, this is discrimination. This same medication is available to other people. How can you say that this American citizen cannot have this medication?
I just found it. Is it the teen that had to flee Tennessee, that left Tennessee?
Yeah. I believe so.
Yeah.
She would drive, or they would drive to North Carolina, like far away, I believe. It's like, it's a long drive, especially after the floods.
More sophisticated now than
Kristen Chapman and her 17-year-old daughter.
More sophisticated now.
And they were driving they moved to Virginia to continue gender affirming care, halted by Tennessee. And they just joined that lawsuit that's going up in front of the Supreme Court now. So, I mean, this is textbook just discrimination, right? You can't offer a set of medication to one group of people and not offer it to another group of people because you just don't want to, right? And like Mandy, I feel comfortable saying this because you've talked about it on the show before, but Mandy's daughter had precocious puberty, and Mandy has twins. And like, if y'all saw photos, I promise you, if you saw photos, Mandy's daughter looks like she's 4 years older than her son in these photos because she was going through puberty too early, and they are twins, right? So it is clear that this child was going through puberty way too early. What if Mandy's child happened to be queer, right? Like, what then? Does she not get the puberty blockers that she needs for this medical condition because she's queer? She doesn't need the puberty blockers because she's queer. She needs them because she was going through precocious puberty. Does she not get them now?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. Like, I mean, and that's been why I've tried to explain to people that I like hormone blockers better than puberty blockers as well. I've tried to explain to people, I have ever since that, because it's like the buzzword, right? Like 2 years ago, not a single one of these transphobic individuals, or well, let's go back a little further, Trump's first term, whatever. But before Trump's first term, I would argue none of them had ever heard of hormone blockers unless they themselves had had someone in their life need to utilize them. They had no idea what they were. And so the way it was like from buzzword to demonizing it to where I've literally had, drop down, drag out arguments with people in lives telling me I did the wrong thing treating my daughter. And I'm like, who the hell are you? You weren't in the doctor's office. You didn't go to the two endocrinologists that I saw because the first one was a dude and he told my daughter, and he told me that the only reason to treat my daughter would be to make me more comfortable. And I refused to see him again. I don't care what his credentials were. Like, you weren't the one who did the research, who talked to the doctor in tears because you wanted to make sure you were doing the right thing. You weren't the one who found yourself in this very vulnerable situation where you didn't know anything about any of this until suddenly you had to know everything about it. And then you're going to get up here and be like, well, no, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done it. Okay, well, fuck you then. Okay. You have a third grader in full-fledged, puberty with predatory men checking her out when she's, 8. Like, you do that, but I'm not going to. And my daughter to this day is thankful that I did what I did. But like, I don't think any of these people had any idea what any of this was until suddenly it was being demonized. And even to your point about the gym bros using it, honestly, they may not know, but even if they did, they won't care.
No.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. Oh, and Tanya, thank you so much for the super chat. She said, not only parents, but the babies often only know pain before they unalive. I know we're talking about, I think that refers back to the infant mortality conversation we were having. And I think about that often. Like my sister was one, I talk about it. She's kind of like this crazed evangelical in Texas who you know, she made the decision like her baby was not going to survive and held the baby for hours until it unalived. I think that was probably one of the most painful situations I've ever witnessed in my life. And so, yeah, I intimately know like what you mean, Tardia. And I think these are such deeply personal situations. You don't understand until you have picked out a tiny baby casket, which my family had to do. So I deeply understand. And I think the point, and I want to keep tying this back together to Christian nationalism, right? And to whatever this weird brand, this perverted brand, that's what I'm calling it after today, this perverted brand of Christianity that is being pushed in the White House. Because that is the point, to deny science, right? Like that's the tenet of fascism. No, like I always say, my opinions come from data. I want to live in a data-driven society. The minute my opinions don't match the data, then I change them. I was debating yesterday and I was explaining that to this 23-year-old kid, like, I'm not like you. I'm not saying my feelings right now. I'm saying things that I know to be true because of numbers. And if the numbers don't bear out what I'm saying, then I won't be saying it anymore. And that's the thing that concerns me most, is watching the Trump administration try to erase data and then replace it with things like this faith office and these Christians who will see, right? And the message that I keep hearing, there's several crazy messages, but one is, the LGBTQIA, trans children. In some way, this is a perversion, and not just that, though, something's wrong with our minds, not just that something is wrong with us mentally, but that we are also in turn predators, right? Which, hey, does data bear that out? Absolutely not. Of course it doesn't. But we're no longer a data driven society. God told them so. Or, or their weird brand of God told them so. And that weird brand of God, Christian nationalism, is about oppression of the LGBTQIA, oppression and control of women, and things, and othering people, through fascism. That's what we're doing. And I just want to give a couple examples because I'm going to try to tie this back because I just find this stuff so disturbing. While I keep hearing these same people, these same preachers that Trump, like Paula White, we were talking about her yesterday, Trump's new, head of the White House faith office, right? These are the same people who say the LGBTQIA are trying to indoctrinate our children. And then for some reason, it's always these people that end up diddling kids. It's the strangest thing. And I was just searching through these. I just want to show an example. Like this is just an example of a guy, like Trump is having these evangelical, like Christian nationalist pastors, like tour the White House. And this is real. Okay. This guy is serious. This is not satire.
And I just got, Mandy and Felice know this, but I work in a couple research teams out of Europe, and specifically one out of UK. And I've been in Europe a couple times in the last few months. And it's not that Christianity doesn't exist there, right? And I was in Spain. That's a very Catholic country, right? A very Christian, very Catholic country. They still think we're nuts, y'all. They look at that and they're like, something is wrong with your Christians. Like, something is seriously wrong with your Christians. And in Spain, they're like, look, we can have our religion, but we can separate that from our government as well and from our lives. Like, we can live our lives and let other people live their life. And as all three of us know this, right? And I'm sure a lot of people watching this know, it's because our Christianity in the US, the specific brand of evangelical Christianity that we have here, is based on racism, right? Like the whole anti-AB movement is based on racism. It's based on Jerry Falwell and Paul Weyrich, who lost their rights to school segregation. Right. And then they were like, how can we get people to rally around stuff? Because we can't get them to rally around school segregation anymore. We need a moral issue. And they created the moral majority. And that's how we got all of this pro-life movement, this anti-choice movement. Before that, the evangelicals were in support of AB. They said it's none of our business. It's between a woman and her doctor, right? Like we're not medical professionals. You can literally find Jerry Falwell Sr. giving sermons about this and coming on record and saying this is none of our business. And then when they lost school segregation, all this happened. And to Felice's point, like they like to call us perverts. Pretty sure it was Jerry Falwell Jr. heading Liberty University.
I was just going
that
to
was
bring
having
this up.
a nice little three-way
Which I
relationship.
support, by the way. Like,
Fully.
hey, yeah, you're a cuckold. You enjoy, you get off on watching other men have sex with your wife. Cool. Like, that's cool with me.
The worst and this is I think the good thing about the queer community, right? As long as everything is like safe and consensual, the worst you should have, and of course this comes from my work as a clinical sexologist too, like one of my jobs is to be non-judgmental, right? The worst you should ever say about somebody else's sex life, good for you, but it's not for me, right? Like you want to do that, Jerry Falwell Jr., you want to have like a little cuck situation where you're sitting in a chair watching.
Documentary about that, by the way. Highly recommend the documentary. Oh, great watch. You got, because they have the guy,
watch.
the third guy is like basically telling the story. Oh, and you know what? By the way, here's some gossip on that I just heard like 2 days ago. It's so funny we're bringing this up because I didn't plan it. Michael Cohen was like on some, I don't know if it was his own podcast. I don't think it was. I think he was on someone else's podcast. And Michael Cohen was telling the story of like Trump's first administration and how like, I don't know if you know, I mean, I could get into it, but Michael Cohen thought he was going to get like a position in the Trump administration and leading up to it. And he was doing all of these things, you know, he was helping with the Stormy Daniels hush money case. He was doing all these things to try to show Trump like, oh, I deserve to have a position in your administration. And one of the things he was planning in real time was to have Jerry Falwell Jr. endorse Trump. And then all that happened. And he was like, oh, and then I was like, this is not going to work. But that's so funny. Oh, and Nancy, thank you so much for the Cash App as well. Thank you for the $5.
I wanted to say thank you, Nancy, for the Venmo.
Thank you. You guys are wonderful. I was just having a discussion with somebody about this Jerry Falwell thing today, actually, because they were like, did you know about this? And I'm like, not only did I know about this, but it's included in some of my lectures and on actual PowerPoint about this stuff, right? Because, and I say the same thing when this first came out, right? In like 2019 or something, when I would give lectures, people would ask me about that often, right? Because I talk a lot about the evangelical movement and how it's based in racism and it's linked to the AB and women's rights movements and things like that. And people are like, well, what do you think about this Falwell case? I don't care. And as a queer and genderqueer human, I want you to not care what I do in my bedroom, right? I'm a non-monogamous human, right? I'm in non-monogamous relationships. So as a queer person, I want you to not give a shit what I'm doing in my bedroom, right? I don't care what you're doing in your bedroom. What I do care about is that you stand on a national stage and pretend to have moral superiority and pretend to be for traditional family values and pretend to be anti-LGBTQ when you bought a pro-LGBTQ hostel for your, I don't know what to call him, your wife's boyfriend, like who was, by the way, half her age.
He's
like,
hot too.
Right. He's a good looking guy. Like, I don't care what you do. I care that you stand on a national stage and pretend to be above everybody and judge people for what they do. No one gives a shit what you do in your bedroom, Jerry Falwell. We give a shit, you give a shit what I do in mine.
Yep.
He was a pool boy, Toodle. He basically was like a Miami pool boy.
I mean, get it, like, right? Like,
you have to be hot to work at a pool in Miami. Just in South Beach, like if you work at a pool in South Beach, you are hot. Like,
yeah.
And Jerry Falwell Jr. seems cool. Like when I heard this story and watched this documentary, I was like, oh, see. But I agree, it's the hypocrisy, right? It's the cover up. It's that you are publicly demonizing me and saying that I'm a deviant while engaging in this behavior. Oh, it's called God Forbid. Thank you, T. I love crowdsourcing information. T says it's called God Forbid, and it's on Hulu if anyone is looking for that. I highly recommend that documentary. It's literally like popcorn. It's the best story. Listen, let me just play this clip, though. This is an example of the evangelical weirdos Trump is giving tours of the White House to. And, like, I love this because think about Trump, who's, like, so very obviously not religious. And then think about how these evangelical people just invent weird things in their head that are not happening and see them as, like, it's a sign.
So we walk into the Oval Office. And my first time there, so I'm just in awe, just taking everything in, you know, the beautiful curtains, the oil paintings, and all the hubbub of the press. And
Trump's mugshot. Did you guys hear that Trump has his mugshot framed in the Oval Office? It's like behind on the side of his desk. Oh, yeah. People have made so many TikToks about this when they saw it. He literally has a huge framed shot of his mugshot. Like, just look, you know, he looks like so creepy at it. Yeah, it's huge. And it's just off to the side of his desk. You can see it during press conferences and everything.
And President Trump sitting on a cushion that is on top of his chair, in the leather chair in the office,
like a booster seat. Sorry.
I mean, it's real. I mean, it was kind of funny. He pointed over to the door leading out to the Rose Garden, and he pointed and he said, "That's an angel. I had an angel put above the door." And then we looked, and on the other door that led to the Roosevelt Conference Room, there was another one of those. And it's as you would imagine a Mar-a-Lago type gold angel, kind of a cherubim fashion angel. But President Trump installed angels in the White House, and he made sure that we knew that. And when he pointed them out and described that he had just installed those angels in the White House, he turned around. Franklin Graham was just over his left shoulder. He said, "Franklin, angels protect you, right?" And of course, Franklin Graham says, "Yes, absolutely, Mr. President."
How can we combat this? Do you know what I'm saying? How can we combat this with logic and reason?
You can't. Like, it. First of all, I thought that they believed in worshiping false idols, right? Like, I thought that
I know
Christians believed in worshiping false
you
idols.
should have no graven images.
Yeah. So number one, Trump, like, y'all are obviously worshiping Trump as if he's an idol, and they literally say he's their savior, right? But I don't have any, like, Joe Biden was famously a Catholic. John F. Kennedy was famously a Catholic. I know a lot of people that have, like, crucifixes or crosses above their doorways and things like that. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem. Like, I've been in the Oval Office. You get to decorate it. When you become the president, you kind of get to change some things and do different things to it, right? I don't care. But when you want to pretend like you installed these angels and like they're giving you these protection or they have like these powers and stuff, like in psychology, we call this a delusion, right?
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. And everything to these people is like it's a sign. It's a sign. Like, I saw it. It's all happening. It's all coming true. And I just want to show you guys. So this is a great example, right? I love how they call it bag occultist, because that is exactly how I describe him. Lance Wallnow, who explains how Christian nationalists intend to use the White House faith office to seize institutions of the federal government, right? And he's on Steve Bannon's show talking about this. And this is why I'm going to continue to point out they are trying to use some perverted brand of Christianity to hurt women, to hurt children, to hurt the LGBTQIA, to hurt Black and brown people. Oh, cool. I love that. Cool. You know, I've never seen that before. Listen to this.
What we're doing now, we've got a foothold with Paula White, but the expansion of that has got to be the underrepresented Christian population, which is over half the United States, in all sectors of what we call the high places of culture or the mountaintops of culture.
You don't know, that's from the Seven Mountain philosophy, right? Like, if you don't know what the Seven Mountain philosophy is, that's a terrifying Christian nationalist philosophy, which we'll get into as I get into these SA scandals that all these people in Trump's White House faith office seem to be caught up in, right? But yeah, it's like the seven pillars. It's like finance, the arts, and it's this belief that like Christian nationalists need to take over these seven categories of American culture at any means necessary. Yeah, Seven Mountain philosophy or something like that. And you can look it up. It's terrifying stuff. But they're just openly, with creepy Steve Bannon, recently got out of jail, talking about this though.
My thoughts.
We're a big believer here, and we say all the time about seize the institution. You have to seize the institutions. How would you propose to use both these, the task force and the new faith office, to seize the institutions of the federal government?
There are three arteries that make this happen: legislation, litigation, and the shaping of public opinion. Legislation, litigation, and the shaping of public opinion. And while Paula White has to be careful what she says in public, I believe I might have learned that from her.
So, I mean, and I just want to be clear, like people are always joking and being like, oh, Trump took over the Kennedy Center. That's part of the Seven Mountain philosophy, taking over Hollywood and the arts. How people are depicted in movies shapes American culture. That's part of this. That is what they are doing. Any thoughts on this? I don't know. It's just terrifying.
I often think about Will and Grace when I think about this stuff, and then I say that, and people are like, "Wait, what?" Loved Will and Grace, and Will and Grace did a shit ton for the LGBTQ community, right? Like, this was a show that people really liked a whole lot. This was a show that people really got into, and they were the first gay kiss on mainstream TV, right? And it sort of normalized it. And now we have a lot of shows that we still don't have enough, but we have many more shows that have queer representation, because representation matters, right? Like, there's entire studies on this. There's entire media companies built around this. I mentioned a couple weeks ago that there's media companies that are now really working to come out with diverse media content, knowing that it's going to be shut down at a federal level. They're trying to get like private funding and stuff, so that way this kind of diverse content can continue. And it's not just representation of like LGBTQ people, right? It's representation of Black people. It's representation of people with disabilities, things like that. So representation in media really, really matters. And like Felice said, media shapes our culture. And I love how this guy says, well, 50% of Americans are Christian, or more than 50%. Christians are not a monolith, right? Like, he says this as if Christian is a monolith. There are so many different Christian denominations. And I think I saw a 2023 report. That's the most recent one that's in my brain. That said something like 65% of Americans identify as Christian. First of all, a lot of them are not practicing, right? They're just socially identifying as Christian because that's how they were raised or they were baptized. So they say, I'm Christian, but they're not involved in a church. They don't attend church. They don't practice their religion, right? Not only that, but 41% of that 65% is white Christians. Christians of color, specifically the Black churches, do not believe the same things and do not hold the same values as these racist white evangelical, usually Southern Baptists. By the way, why do we have the Southern Baptist Convention? Because they split from the main Baptist Convention because they supported slavery. That's why we have this. That's literally why Southern Baptist was made, right? Because they used the Bible to justify slavery. Otherwise, you were just a Baptist.
It's the largest cross-section of the evangelical church, if you don't know, the Southern Baptist Convention.
You know that paper is more sophisticated now.
Huge. Also full of predators, but whatever. So it's one of those things where they released a thing like 2 years ago, 200 pages, not 200 people, 200 pages of men that had been accused or like credibly charged with SA allegations within their churches. And most of them were just moved around, right? Most of them it was covered up by the church.
Yeah, because if you attack a child in one city, you just move. They won't attack a child in another city, right?
But they just see it as sin, right? They're just like, oh, it's sin no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And they see SA as outside of marriage sex. That's what the sin is. The sin is having sex outside of marriage, right? So Christians aren't a monolith, number one. But I also hear, just to like call people in a little bit, and please hear this as a call in. If you are Christian, I hear a lot of people say like, well, not all Christians, not all Christians. Call your people in then. When you like, it is all Christians until it is no Christians. And right now, this is the dominant Christian voice in America. The dominant Christian voice in America is making everybody look bad that is a Christian. And if you don't like it, start loudly proclaiming against these other people and saying, I'm a Christian and this is bullshit. And when you hear other people saying this stuff and say like, well, because I'm a Christian too, and this is bullshit. This isn't how Jesus would act.
Yeah. Well, I get a lot of that because I will say things like his little book and Sky Daddy, and I will inevitably always get a message or sometimes an email from some very angry Christian who's like, that doesn't represent all Christians, and you don't have to be disrespectful by saying it this way and that way. And I literally have come to where I'm like, the call's coming from within God's own house. I'm going to need you to deal with it because I'm just going to call it out like I see it. I'm not here to sugarcoat it. I'm not here to hold your hand. You guys need to handle your business. You don't want to be grouped in with them, then do what you need to do to set yourself apart. Like, it's not my job to do that for you. I'm going to call it like I see it. And the people, like you said, the predominant voice isn't a good one. It's America's I mean, they honestly seem to think Jesus just likes America, and it fucking weirds me out so much. That's probably one of the biggest things that just every time they talk in terms of just America and Trump. And it's like they literally believe in America's I'm like, that is absolutely not how that works. Like, you don't have your own personal deity for our country like that.
The latest split going on within the Southern Baptist Convention, right? Like, Dani's absolutely right. Like, that Southern Baptist Convention split from Baptist churches because they supported slavery. And now what they're trying to do is basically make women chattel slaves, like your possessions, right? That is the latest thing within the Southern Baptist Convention is they're having these huge votes, or their last convention last year. I covered it like in one of my live streams where they're trying to force women out of any positions of power and make them like subservient to men. And we know, and we talked about last week, and that's how this all ties together. Like, the broadcast, what we're trying to do is talk about how women and children are being damaged by conservative policy and by the Trump administration. And this is the brand of Christian nationalism. It's about, we talked about coverture laws, right? These evangelicals believe that women aren't their own person, right? They just are part of the household that either their dad is a part of, and that covers them. That's what coverage laws are. Or they get married and then they're a part of their husband's household. That's why they want to repeal the 19th Amendment, and they do not want women to vote. They say one household, one vote, and that should be the man who is the head of the household.
And that's where we get like,
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
No, you go ahead.
That's where we're getting this SAVE Act, which you heard us talk about last week, and I think maybe even the week before, where if you got married and you changed this, they're not going to repeal the 19th Amendment like right away, right? That's going to take a lot of time. It would take a lot of work to undo a constitutional amendment that's already there. So they're going to chip away at rights the same way they chipped away at rights for people of color and queer people. They're going to make it harder for you to vote. They're going to make it harder for you to maintain employment, right? We're going to start removing pregnancy protections. We're going to start saying that you can fire people because they're pregnant, or you can fire people because they went on pregnancy leave or something like that. Like, they're just going to make it harder for women to live independently. And this SAVE Act, something that I worry about, right? Because I travel quite a bit for work. The SAVE Act does not allow you to vote if you changed your name for marriage. The only way you can get around that, right? If your birth certificate says your last name is Smith and you got married and now your last name is Brown, your last name does not match what it is on your birth certificate, you will not be allowed to vote. That's one of the ways they're going to keep women from voting. The only way around that will be is if you have a passport, which is a federally issued document. Women weren't allowed to have passports on their own without a male's permission until 1983, y'all. That was not that long ago.
Yeah, I was just trying to look up that number we were talking about last week, like how many women it is that will be affected. So yeah, the SAVE Act is number one. It's meant it's about voter ID laws. They say it's about non-citizens voting. The Heritage Foundation, I always talk about this, tracks instances of non-citizens, not just try to vote, but trying to register to vote. There have been less than 100 since 2002. We've cast over 678 million votes, or it's more now since the election, however many, add on whatever this last presidential election was, less than 100 instances. Non-citizen voting is a non-issue, right? But what we know is the SAVE Act will affect voter ID laws disproportionately affect Black and brown people and women who have changed their name due to marriage.
Which is going to affect in a very significant portion of conservative women, because they are more likely to have taken the traditional route of getting married and changing their last name. And they often aren't as necessarily as traveled, so they may not have a passport, because it's actually, I think it was like 20% of our country has, like, it's not a very big number of people that carry passports. Like, I'm very glad I have one, but it's one of those things you don't get till you need it. And so few people ever travel out of the country that they don't have one. But again, and I think this is where you get back to like Joel Webbin, the pastor, or J.D. Vance, when they talk about the family vote. They talk about the family, the idea of a family vote, meaning that the head of the household votes on behalf of the family. Like, that's what something like this is intending to do, right? Like, yeah, one could say, well, but single women can still vote if they still have their same. Sure, but it's always going to happen in incremental steps. Like, it's always going to be, it's never just going to be a law outlawing something. It's never just going to be, oh, we got rid of the 19th Amendment. Bye. Like, it's never going to be that. It's going to be chipping away at it over and over and over and finding different ways to put up different barriers in hopes that eventually we just get too complacent to bother.
Yeah, and I found this post. Oh, sorry. I found this post. It's 160 million women in America who have changed their name as a result of marriage. Republicans have now revived the SAVE Act to remove your right to register or update your voter registration. This prevents Americans from being able to register to vote by mail. And Dani talked about this last week, and you said it so well, like about how which election was it when they started, like conservatives started like analyzing voter data and realized, like, because you think, oh, that's going to affect conservative women, but basically they've run the numbers, and if women don't vote, conservatives will win 100% of the time.
It was in like 2019. They ran the numbers because they were trying to figure out, like, you know, the number one predictor still is not gender or sex. The number one predictor of how you're going to vote, which I think is extremely telling, is education level. The more educated you are, the more likely you are to vote more progressively, right? The less educated you are, the more likely you are to vote what I'm going to call regressively, right? Like what they would say is conservative. But they ran the numbers, I believe it was in 2019, right before the 2020 election, and they essentially said, if only women voted, Democrats would win by a landslide. A landslide. If only men voted, Republicans would win by a landslide. So it wasn't even like a close difference. It was like, if women vote, this is the way it's going to go. If men voted, this is the way it's going to go. Right. And the reason that we got Trump is because white women voted against their own interests. They voted for their whiteness rather than for sex and gender discrimination stuff. Right. Like, rather than for their own bodily autonomy and their own rights, they voted for their whiteness. So had we gotten more women to vote the other way, it would have played out exactly as the research said it would have played it out.
Well, and it makes me think about that Joel Webbin interview where he was asked what he would do. He's like, I would take away women's right to vote. And they asked him why. He said, because if we get a Christian nation and women have the ability to vote, within 50 years, we will no longer be a Christian nation. because he knows that women will vote against their policies because their policies are meant to oppress women and keep women in a very gender specific role of at home, pregnant, barefoot, waiting on their every need. Without any, we're second class citizens to men across the board, especially Black, Brown, Indigenous, women of color. And he said it straight out. He said that the quiet part out loud because he knew he could. Because that's we're careening in that path.
And this is the Center for American Progress. If this is a great resource for all things like the numbers we're talking about the SAVE Act, how it will affect you if you're married, all of these things. They just came out with this at the end of January. I love the Center for American Progress. But yeah, it talks about 84% of women who marry change their surname, meaning as many as 69 million American women do not have a birth certificate with their legal name on it and thereby could not use their birth certificate to prove citizenship. The SAVE Act makes no mention of being able to show a marriage certificate or change of name documentation, which I am sure is very much on purpose. Yeah, and it goes into the incomes and everything. Like, this is a fascinating resource to use if you want more information on how the SAVE Act could affect you or will affect other people as well. That's a great point about Joel Webbin. We don't talk about him enough. I want to show you guys, though, these essay scandals that keep coming up, because they're sickening. And again, I was talking about the 7 Mountain philosophy. This is one of the progenitors of it. Her name's Gendra Kesey. Her husband is a famous Christian nationalist preacher. You might, if you're from Ohio, that's where these people are, right? And they believe in the 7 Mountains dominionism. She just became a county commissioner in Ohio, right? Because that's part of the 7 Mountain philosophy, is they need to infiltrate local politics, right? And that's, you're doing your duty by any means necessary to infiltrate the 7 Mountains. So that's essentially what she's doing. And it turns out, right, this woman, and I'm not even going to play it because I think I might get in trouble. I probably would get banned. I was listening to one of her sermons where she was just going off about the LGBTQIA and how any church that is tolerant of the LGBTQIA is a fraud, and how the LGBTQIA are exactly perverse and need to be dealt with. I mean, this is her message. Oh, but it turns out her son is actually a predator. Isn't that the weirdest thing, how these things always turn out? Here's just an example of her talking. Oopsies. Oh, it's on mute.
This is Knox County's my new office. I'll continue to do the things I do for the ministry and for the church. But as I've talked to you about in books like Fight Like Heaven, it's an opportunity for us to take on the 7 mountains, to bring righteousness and God's plans for the government. Governments are important. I want to encourage any of you that are considering running for office. It is a calling to be in government. It is a calling to take on any of those mountains of education and arts and music and media. There's all these areas we need to share God's kingdom principles so that we can have righteousness rule.
Yeah, again, I'll show you her. Don't worry, I'm not done with her. But again, this woman's daughter, we'll get into it. And while she's judging other people, but you heard what she said. She's like, it's the 7 Mountain philosophy. We need to infiltrate politics, the arts, music, education. And that's what she's doing. She's in her county commissioner office. She has been elected to local office. Now, if you want to look up more about her, this is a good article. And again, all of this is in the Discord, in the outline, all the links to these articles. Right? Oh, no, wait. This doesn't talk about the essay incident. This is just her gross philosophy and what she's doing in local politics and Christian nationalism. But again, you can screenshot this. This came out in January. It's just an example. There's a lot of concerned people in Ohio about her, right? She's a conspiracy theorist. She's all of the MAGA conspiracy theories. She's from Knox County, Ohio, if you don't know, and we'll get into it, but let me show you guys. Now, this just came out on February 11th. Oh, what do you know? While she's worried about the LGBTQIA, here's her creepy son.
And just so we're clear, not a drag queen, not a queer person.
No.
Yeah. Oh, it's the weirdest thing. Apparently he's straight. Yeah. Yes. And by the way, and we'll get there. One of the people, good thing I just made a Facebook account or I couldn't have seen it. Part of the reason this is such a big deal and it's being reported on in Ohio is because it's his own sister who's had enough and had to come out and basically just detail the horrors of what this guy has done to her. And her parents have been covering up. This is her Facebook post, and it's a long Facebook post. Her name's Kirsten McKinney. And all of the links to this in the articles and stuff are provided in the outline. If you're interested in looking up more of this, I think everyone should. Right? These are people that are in local politics. They're conservatives. They're supporters of Donald Trump and all his conspiracy theories. And it takes his sister to come out and be like, hey, this weirdo is victimizing people, and I think we should look into it. And the reason she's so mad is it gets worse. Her mom's now involved in local politics, and the guy who would assign this case to be investigated or to be prosecuted is friends with the parents and she believes delaying the case or refusing to. Now he's come out publicly, because I was looking up updates about this, and he's like, oh, I can't do anything because it's a conflict of interest. So someone else needs to take it from me, because no matter what I do, it would be a conflict of interest. But this is their literal daughter. They don't, that they've allowed this to happen to.
So I was reading about that, right? And Dave Yost is the guy that.
Yes, Dave, thank you. I couldn't remember his name.
So he's the one that should be assigning the case, right? He's the attorney general for Ohio. And he wasn't assigning the case. The case has to be assigned to an attorney for prosecution and stuff, right? And he was just sitting on it. And then he came out his press office came out and said that we're working to find another law enforcement agency that can investigate the case because it's a conflict of interest. If you really cared about protecting children, if this was really about protecting children, you would have been on this so fast, right? This case would have come to your desk and it would have been a priority, and you would have been like, oh, wow, I can't take this case, but let's immediately resolve this situation so this case can move forward, so it doesn't just sit on my desk indefinitely, right? And the only time they came out to say it's a conflict of interest is when the media started calling them out about it.
Exactly. And that's what she's detailing in her post. That she says, I also cannot ignore that her mother has someone whose mother also likes to cover up what happened to them as a child. I feel for her because I know what it's like to be gaslit by someone like that. Has a close political relationship with Attorney General Dave Yost. I do not know if this has had any impact on the decision, but it raises serious questions about the fairness and transparency of this process. And she says here, a close friend in law enforcement told me the case is being blocked due to the conflict of interest. This is the second attempt to have this case placed that has been blocked due to an alleged conflict of interest. They will now attempt to move it to a third location, but there are concerns this might be a repeat pattern. And she puts the attorney general's number down there. If you want to screenshot it, you can see she put an 800 number you can call as well. And then there's also this is a change.org petition. Oopsies. Sorry. This is a change.org petition. I think I signed it this morning. I think we should all sign as well, because you're probably thinking, what can we do about this? Well, again, that's his phone number right here. If you want to screenshot it, this is the attorney general who's refusing to assign the case. Oh, now he wants to be governor. Is that true? I'm not surprised. This is gross. Ohio is another state that wants to codify ABs, and still they haven't done it, right? And then there's this change.org petition that can be signed as well.
Political carroting, the political carrot of AB rights is so fucking infuriating. They say they want to do these things, but they don't actually take the actions to do them, because it's kind of like we saw with Roe, right? As long as they could continue to use that to campaign on and get donations on, they would. But even now, it's like let's not get it twisted. Roe was the bare minimum. Like, Roe is literally the bare fucking minimum. And now we have to deal with it being on a state level. So if states are like, yeah, we want to codify it, fucking do it. Find a way to make it happen. And then the states that give it to the people, we're seeing as Missouri is like fighting hand over fist to try to stop it from being protected. And luckily judges have been siding with voters, but still, or we're seeing it in Ohio, or they still haven't formally, I don't even know if it's still codified yet in Ohio.
It is. They voted for it. Yeah, they voted.
But I don't know if they've actually followed
Issue
through
1 or whatever. Yeah,
I don't know that they followed through with like.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like they've kept it in appeals, right? They're doing the same thing in Missouri. They're doing the same thing
in Kansas. I think
in Kansas, like. I'm sorry. Something about saying they want to do it and they don't. It's just that it's that whole like, hey, if we keep this, this is what got us in this mess to begin with, was the let's keep using these things to get people motivated. And then they don't. Now, I'm sorry. I just want to have a little ADHD tangent there, but like.
No, that's the point I was trying to make. Like, all of this is related, right? The oppression of women, stopping women from getting health care, saying that's why states' rights is so ridiculous, right? That, I'm sending it back to the states. Well, what about these states that voted to codify ABs and give women access to health care and make choices about their own bodies? All of these red states that voted for it still don't have it. Oh, and here's the case number. If anyone is going to call that guy, Davios, the case number is listed right here as well, because I think I will be leaving a few voicemails tonight. Again, his victims include his sister, who posted below, and girls under his influence in the church, right? And several of them are alleged to be minors. Bring justice to the victims of Gary Thomas, Kesey for SA and abuse of minors. I highly suggest we sign that petition. And this is another person who responded to Kirsten's Facebook post and came out and was like, yeah, he did this to me too. Her name's Olivia Wooten. So I just think, and she talks about being silent and covering it up. Like, I think, and then her husband wrote about it as well, like wrote about this as well. And if you can't get justice, I mean, these are, upper middle class from looking at their Facebook pages, like white people who can't get justice. This is the daughter of a pastor and they're still covering this up to protect the son. It is quite disturbing on every level.
And so if anyone's like just jumping in, we're talking about, there is a woman that, this is a different thing, right?
Yeah, I'll go back.
Yeah. So, we're talking about, how do you say her last name? Kesey,
I think. Yeah.
Kesey. So, Drenda Kesey.
I'll go back to her picture. Well, should we leave it here? I mean, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about. So, she's getting higher and higher up, like in the Republican ranks, right? And being hypocritical, talking about family values and all that stuff. Meanwhile, this is what's going on with her son. There's multiple people coming forward. This is very, like someone saying it's reminiscent of the Duggar family. It's very reminiscent of the Duggar family. It's very reminiscent of the Southern Baptist Convention, right? Where that there is abuse going on in the church, and the church
looks
just
like the Duggar kid almost, doesn't it? Like, it is giving Duggars for sure. This is in Ohio. This is in Knox County, Ohio. One of the victims is his own sister. That's what I was showing Facebook posts. That's his own sister having to come out and be like, yeah, this happened to me, and they're refusing to sign the case. Like, that's essentially what we're talking about. The hypocrisy. And this woman, Drenda, who's part of the Seven Mountain Philosophy, has just been elected in Ohio she's a county commissioner. She's also, a pastor of this church and works in this church, tax-free, right? Tax-free money, while they're covering up this. And the attorney general says he can't assign the case because he's friends with her. And it would be a conflict of interest. And her own daughter is saying this is the second time the case wasn't assigned. They're going to try to move it again, but she thinks the same thing is going to happen. So that's why there's a change.org petition. And I'll put it up one more time if you want to try to help. Like, she's asking people, here's his 800 number. This is the Attorney General of Ohio, who's friends with her mother and is refusing to assign the case because it's a conflict of interest. And she wants people to call and leave a message or sign the change.org petition to hold these weirdos accountable. Both is good, right? And someone said in the comments that this attorney general is thinking, because, you know, the governor of Ohio, that race is coming up. Vivek Ramaswamy, I believe, is running in it. And then apparently someone said this guy is thinking about it as well. So this is just, and again, this woman is a woman who I was just listening to one of her scary, puzzle piece. Hold on one second. Christian nationalist sermons where she's calling the LGBTQIA predators. Meanwhile, her son is a real one and victimized his sister. They're covering it up. God,
By the way, I just love these. I always like to go back to, it was Ken Paxton in Texas. So this is in Ohio, right? But it was Ken Paxton in Texas that said that we don't need essay exemptions for AB laws. We don't need those because we're going to make grape complete. We're going to eliminate grape. We're just totally going to eliminate it. It's not going to exist anymore.
Was that Greg Abbott? I think that was Greg Abbott who said they were going to get rid of rape. Yeah.
In Texas.
Yeah, so, and Ken Paxton is like, I've told you guys this before. Like, I understand the like how bad Trump is and JD Vance and a lot of those really high up people. But if I could pick someone that I could just be like, let me have 5 minutes purge style, like let me have some fun, it would be Ken Paxton, because that man seems to have a literal hard on for hurting women and people with uteruses, and like he like literally gets off on harming these people and trying to control women. And I look at him and I'm just like, really, you're the guy who thinks he's gonna like control? No.
Well, look how he treated his wife, like during his impeachment trial.
Yeah.
Oh my God! And his mistress had to testify. Like, what the was that? Yeah.
How does he have a mistress? I don't mean to like.
These are Christians. Is adultery not wrong? That was a married man whose mistress was being housed with like government dollars.
It was ugly. I'm sorry. I am not a person who cares about what people look like, and I don't do that. I don't sink myself to that level. But have you look at Ken Paxton? How has he got a wife, let alone a mistress? Like I just
nobody knows. Nobody. I'm with you. Conservative men. It's mind-boggling. I agree with you. Someone in the comments said that they looked and the case has been assigned. I don't know if that's true or not, but like this all just happened. So if it has, this is a huge pressure campaign going on all over X, and like people are adding Dave Yost like all day long. So I really hope that this is working and it's all over Facebook. So I do hope that this actually gets taken care of. I truly hope so, because it's a crime, quite literally, that this guy. And then, like, let's talk about the big one. And I touched on this, but then, like, I didn't fully know the story when this was first reported on. Do you guys this is Matt Schlapp? Do you guys recognize this creeper? This is the man who's in charge of of CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Committee. And their parent company, the American Conservative Union, the ACU, right? This is one of Trump's biggest allies. Yeah, the guy grabber. Maybe we should call him that. I love alliteration. Yes, that is correct. The guy grabber. And if you know, and I'll show you some screenshots. But this, and I didn't know this story because this is a profile done on him. Meet the Schlapps, Washington's Trump era it couple. I just want to give you an idea of how powerful these people are in the evangelical world and like in the political world. Like it's where two worlds collide, like this CPAC is. And it's terrifying how much power Matt Schlapp has. And the story that's told, the first story they tell in this New York Times profile, I didn't know. You guys know who Michael Steele is, right? Like he's a never Trumper he's a black guy. He was like the chair of the Republican Party for a while, but now he's on MSNBC all the time. And the first story they tell is a story about Michael Steele basically saying, Matt Schlapp says, we elected Mike Steele to be the RNC chair because he's a black guy. That was the wrong thing to do. So yeah, I'm just giving examples of who Matt Schlapp is. I mean, outside of also just having a problem stopping assaulting men constantly, right? And these are the people who say it's wrong, right? The LGBTQI, it's wrong to be gay. Meanwhile, this guy is, and again, I want to just create a distinction between assaulting people and being gay, like, right?
Yeah.
Like, because these are two separate things, but like he's guilty of both, of trying to demonize the LGBTQIA, and then also like, well, we'll get into what he does, but I just thought that was horrible. I never knew that story about Michael Steele and like the racism, but this is the story. If you want
I encourage people just really, really quick, if you want to go back and look up stuff about Michael Steele, he just blew up on a news channel. Like, I can't remember. I think it was MSNBC. He was being interviewed and he blew up. Like they asked him something like, do you think the judicial branch could rein in Trump's power? And they were like, this Democratic guy was asking him, like, what do you want us to do? And Michael Steele was like, I want you to give a damn. I want Democrats to give a damn about what's happening. So he has like totally turned table on the Republicans. And so if you want to watch a good Michael Steele video, that's a great one to get you started.
Michael Steele is amazing. If you don't know who he is, I highly suggest following him everywhere. Like everything he says is awesome. I love him. And he is getting madder and madder every day that goes on. Like he tried to remain a Republican for a long time because he was like, no, I'm not going to be forced out. Like, that's what he was talking about with this Matt Schlapp incident when Matt Schlapp was being racist toward him. He's like, you have no idea the amount of racism I have swallowed in 41 years in the Republican Party. Like you cannot even fathom it. Like, don't talk to me about like needing to keep my mouth shut. Like, but this is the recent incident because this might seem like deja vu because this man keeps doing this over and over and over. Like it's literally like March 2024. Like I believe is when the last lawsuit was settled because he did this. If you remember when the runoff campaign for Herschel Walker versus Raphael Warnock, the Senate runoff in Georgia, during that campaign, Matt Schlapp allegedly attacked a Republican male staffer. And then paid him, it's rumored like $500,000 basically to make it all go away. His insurance, he's insured for these types of things and his insurance paid it out, like just to be clear. But this is recently, apparently he owns a bar in Virginia. And I highly suggest reading this story because it just shows how predatory and awful he truly is. And Yashar Ali reported on this. He's a great reporter. So sources who spoke to me said Schlapp entered the restaurant and bar on Saturday night and spent over an hour repeatedly standing very close to groups of men, making them, some of whom are gay, uncomfortable. Several of them confronted him. He also allegedly intentionally, unnecessarily passed by the men in a way that allowed his body to closely graze against theirs, sources tell me. According to witnesses, Schlapp was within 2 feet or less of these men, despite there being plenty of space, making such proximity unnecessary. They told me that Schlapp followed them around while he was in the restaurant and bar. Video footage from the night, because this guy reviewed the video footage. He has 7 witnesses. This is because to come after Matt Schlapp, you better have your shit buttoned up, right? Video footage from the night of the incident in which Schlapp is visible shows that he had no reason to be as close to the men as he was. Witnesses also say that Schlapp allegedly repeatedly shifted his body to stay within the sightline of these men. Quote, every time I looked around, whether we were on the dance floor, at the bar, or back at the table talking to people, every time I turned around, this guy was right there, 1 foot behind me, and I was just not comfortable with this, the man who says he was assaulted told me. The man's partner, a woman, this is a straight man, also told me she confronted Schlapp, informing him that the man was in a relationship with her and asking him to back off. While the same man was asking Schlapp to leave because everyone felt uncomfortable with his presence and conduct, Schlapp, while the man was mid-sentence, grabbed and gripped his genitals while looking him directly in the eyes, the man told me. After the alleged assault, the man who says he was assaulted reported the incident to a manager who escorted Schlapp out. Despite being asked to leave, Schlapp returned to the bar, leading to a heated confrontation, according to multiple sources. Praise the Lord. This is one of Trump's spiritual leaders. This is the head of the Conservative Political Action Committee and the American Conservative Union. Praise the Lord. A history of allegations. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go through that.
No, and this is just about, I told you this also happened a year ago during the runoff race for Herschel Walker. And it just talks about that. And you can, I follow the guy on X. But when this next one happened, he was like, the least surprising news ever when it came out. His name's Carlton Huffman. He works in politics. During the Herschel Walker's, he was working on Herschel Walker's Senate campaign in Georgia. The staffer, Carlton Huffman, accused Schlapp of grabbing his genitals without consent, then inviting him to his hotel room. The Daily Beast also reported that Huffman recorded video statements after the alleged assault, like the same night, and told several people, including multiple Walker campaign colleagues, about the incident. And then what happened was, in discovery of that lawsuit, right? Because, if you sue, then they have to release all their records and emails. And it turns out that the American Conservative Union knew about 2 prior incidences of Matt Schlapp doing this that came out in discovery and then were tacked on to that defamation suit. Just 2 separate incidences. One that the Washington Post, it involved a staffer alleging that Schlapp tried to kiss him after an event in 2017. And then an incident in 2022 allegedly involved Schlapp stripping to his underwear and rubbing against another person without his consent. Praise the Lord. This is the Conservative Party.
I was just going to say, for this reason, none of this super surprises me. But I do want to point out, and a couple things. Number one, I'm not trying to make this a whataboutism at all, right? But when any of us do videos on what women have to go through and the fact that women have to worry about being assaulted all the time, and that this is the worry of being harassed or assaulted by a woman for a woman is 98 to 100% of women worry about this, right? And men don't worry about it. And then men will always come on and say, well, men get assaulted too, right? Number one, they're most likely getting assaulted by another man. But number two, where you at? Where you at? This is men, multiple men being assaulted by another man. I don't hear men talking about this. The only people I hear talking about this are women, right? So as we all know, the 3 of us know this well, but it bears saying that men only care about assault against other men when they can use it to devalue women's voices, right? They don't actually care. So there's that. And the other thing is, poll for the chat, right? Poll for the 3 of us. How many of us have been in a bar or a club or something like that and had our ass grabbed or had our breast brushed against us or had a man brush against us from behind and rub their genitals against us? I'm not talking about you being in a crowded club and someone because there's always men that are oh, you can't scoot by someone. We know what you're doing. There's pardon me, excuse me, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, right? We know what you're doing. And how many of us have had men rub up against us and blah, 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 right? And if you go to someone in the club or you go to a bartender, if you go to a female bartender, I've had female bartenders have my back before, right? But for the most part, clubs and club owners and stuff are just this is just something that happens. Very famously, and I encourage you to look up this story because it's one of my favorite stories. I love it so much. Mona at the Hallway is a very famous feminist writer. She writes a blog called Feminist Giant. I absolutely love her. She has this idea. She's terrorize the men back, right? Terrorize them back. And it came from a night where she was in a club with her partner and a man grabbed her and she turned around and just outright attacked him. Outright, started wailing on him. And she had gone through a trauma. She'd been essayed before when she was younger. And she had just gone through some trauma working in Egypt, some very serious trauma working in Egypt. You can also look that up. That's very public. So she says, like, it was an immediate fight mode. It was an immediate, like, people will not be touching my body this way anymore. I'm done. Right. And like, sounds like maybe some of, like, if she has PTSD, it sounds like this was a very triggering event. And she beat the shit out of this man. And the security came over and pulled her off. And they were like, why did you do this? What happened? And she's like, he grabbed me. He assaulted me. So I defended myself. And the security guard said, where's your man? That was the security guard's question to her. But where's your man? And she said, I don't need proximity to a man to be safe. I can keep myself safe. As you can see, I just beat the shit out of this man. Right? So like, she didn't end up getting in trouble, but initially she was in trouble because the club was like, why, like, what are you doing? Why are you being so violent? And she's like, I'm responding to violence with violence. Right? And like, call the police if you want to. I don't give a shit. But she had to challenge the club because they weren't originally on her side. Right? So like, we see this, and then men assault other men, and even that is taken more seriously than women being assaulted, and it's not being taken very seriously to begin with, right?
That was my first thought. Like just hearing it, because I'm like, you would never, ever, as a woman, if some dude is constantly just being too close, or, you know, excuse me, while they put their hand really far low on your back, like, even though they don't need to do that, you can say, excuse me, and not touch us. Like, that is, you don't have to touch us. But if we've all experienced that, nobody's pulling security camera footage for us. Nobody's looking into it. It's done in it's also such a quiet a way of assault, right? Like, they do it where it's kind of hidden, and they can lurk and they can get up close, and then they do it in a way that's not, like, in this case, the example you were giving, like, what he did probably wasn't noticed by many people because that's just what happens, but her response was noticed, and honestly, luckily she wasn't charged, because there's like laws regarding a disproportionate response to someone, and we've seen cases where women are literally charged and given a fine, or, you know, otherwise punished for a disproportionate response to the attack. And it's like, wait a minute, if I feel in danger, I don't think they're, you know, it's not like we're saying he tapped her on the back and she pulled a GUN on him, but she used her physicality to kick his ass. Like, good for her. I'm glad she did. Maybe he'll think twice before he pulls that shit again. But again, the laws are set up against us because those disproportionate clauses in a lot of these, like, self-defense laws are crazy to me, because a woman can literally be attacked on the street, and if she has a weapon of some sort, or she has a way to defend herself, and a judge decides, you know what, you went too far, you broke his nose, you knocked him out, blah 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 blah, or even worse, you know, he did not survive, you're in trouble.
Oh, yeah. Reactive abuse is a real thing. I think I'm definitely somebody that's prone to that for sure. But yeah, I mean, I run around Phoenix. I run like 10 miles a day. And I've been in 1 year, like, mugged pretty much twice. And they do say, like, would you talk to the police about it? They're like, why were you running alone? Like, that is the first response. They 100% blame you for whatever happened, and also for not running away. Because, like, my instincts are really in a crisis is not to run. Like, you know, like, I'm more of like a fighter, because that's how it was when I was a child. I couldn't run. So, like, I do have the instinct to fight. And they're like, well, why didn't you just run? Like, I don't know. You try to make a decision like that. Again, if anyone wants to read about this incident, this is the first incident of this diddler. Sorry, go ahead.
I also want to point out, like, building off of what Mandy said about, like, they know what they're doing, right? And this is like a covert way of doing this. We also see videos on social media often of women, like, filming a guy that's creeping them out, and, like, he just keeps coming to sit closer and closer, and he just keeps trying to talk to her, and she's like, I don't know you. I don't want to talk to you. And the man's like, why don't you want to talk to you? Blah, blah, blah. Or, like, he just keeps he's following her and her friends through the bar or something, and he's just standing really close. And you get all these comments from men going, he's not doing anything wrong. Why are you being so, why are you being so sensitive? Why does this make you feel unsafe? He's not doing anything wrong. They know this man got uncomfortable because Matt Schlapp was following him around the bar and standing within a foot of him. And every time he turned around, there's Matt Schlapp. And he was creeped out. Oh, you mean the same way that women are when men do the same? Because it feels unsafe. Your body knows when you're unsafe. Women are just socialized from the time we're born to absorb bad male behavior and let it go, right? And to put their comfort priority over our comfort and well-being, right? And this is also how sexual coercion happens. And then women will be like, that felt like a really, I get women in therapy and stuff all the time that say like, this felt like a really non-consensual encounter. I feel like I was SA'd, but like, I technically went along with it after I said no twice, but then like I technically went, like, this is also why we get people questioning themselves, right? When they have non-consensual encounters. I'm not going to label something for somebody if they don't feel like it was an assault, if they feel like it was a violation or something, right? But like, they know, y'all. They know.
Yeah.
This is now propped up by our government, right? Like there's no daylight between Matt Schlapp and Trump. The way he survived this incident that was a year ago that happened during the Herschel Walker, Raphael Warnock runoff was Trump. Trump backed him through the entire thing. And helped him silence people. Donald Trump, if you want to know how Matt Schlapp, someone said like, how can he keep doing this? Trump helps him keep doing this. Trump is what is one of the main characteristics of all the people that Trump surrounds himself with? They've all been credibly accused of either essaying someone or credibly accused of covering up essay, right? It's literally one of the number one requirements. Yeah, the CPAC circus played on. That's a good way of saying it. Absolutely. Absolutely. I could not agree more. Oh, here's another Republican diddler. Meanwhile, we should all watch out. Christian nationalists say the LGBTQIA. It's so weird, though. You know, it seems to be white males that we all need to be looking out for. It's the weirdest thing. But that's fascist society. Women are chattel. Like, we're not, we are property, right? If powerful white males want to violate our bodily autonomy, it's acceptable. This is Ryan Jenks. This is a former Idaho Republican legislative candidate. He's a COVID conspiracy type person who's used to speak at those COVID refused to wear masks in Idaho rallies. Right. Here's the most disturbing part about this creeper, Ryan Jenks. He owns a mental health company in Boise, Idaho, specifically geared towards helping children.
Of course he does.
Right. Of course he does. Of course they all do. But we need to watch out for gay people. And if you want to look this up, if anyone wants more information about what I am talking about, because it is disgusting, former Idaho legislative candidate, mental health clinic owner, lawyer, charged with child sex crimes. Huh. Interesting. He was arrested on February 12th. This just happened, by the way. And I looked it up this morning. I think he already bonded out. He's free. He's free and he's a lawyer. And he's closely tied to the Idaho Republican Party. Oh, they don't say anything about his religion. Actually, Idaho, you would assume, but I don't know what his religion is, because I read the article and I don't believe I saw if they said that he was part of any religion. He's a co-owner of a Boise mental health clinic serving children and teens. That's not concerning. He previously ran for the Idaho State Legislature as a Republican. He was arrested Wednesday on multiple felony charges, including alleged essay of minors. He's 45. Charged with 3 felony counts: lewd conduct with a child under 16. And 2 counts of essay of a minor under 16 years of age. The charges stem from incidents allegedly occurring in May of 2016. He posted bail and is no longer held in the Ada County Jail. Nothing to see here. Just Republican men doing what they do best while gaslighting us all about the LGBTQIA. I just thought, I mean, this is just me looking through the news today and finding all this stuff. And then you can read about his like COVID denial stuff and all of this nonsense. But yeah, his company is called Brighter Future Health Inc. He owns 50% of the company. They provide mental health services to children, teens, and adults in Boise and Nampa. Yeah, and watch out for those immigrants. Even though they're much percentage-wise, if we all want to be safe, we would move to neighborhoods of immigrants because they're 30% less likely to be incarcerated than white males in America. But, it's the immigrants. Watch out for brown people. Meanwhile, all of these people are protecting each other. Oh, this is just the article if you wanted to read about his weird COVID denialism. Yeah, he was one of like the keynote speakers at one of these insane COVID rallies in Idaho. But yeah, I just wanted to
pay well for it.
Oh yeah. And people, I will say a lot of people on the internet, Ryan's getting a lot of attention on the internet, which is good. So I hope he really enjoys it.
I think it is. I was going to say essentially the same thing that tweet just said is this is why you see men like this are particularly attracted to areas that are going to give them power and protection, right? There's a reason that a lot of these men get funneled towards white evangelical Christianity, right? And there was this article that came out like right before the election, I think, and we all kind of have talked about it before a while ago, that it was like young women are becoming less religious while young men are flocking to religion. Like, what's going on? And women were sitting here going, this is not a mystery to us. Men are flocking to, why wouldn't they? They're flocking to an institution that tells them they're better than everybody, that tells them they're above women, and that tells them that they're entitled to power and privilege. Why wouldn't men be flocking to that, right? And they also know through all these stories in the media and through well-documented history at this point that religious institutions will cover up their crimes. This is just a man that co-founded a mental health agency and used the mental health agency to do, well, whether or not he used the mental health agency.
Another disturbing thing about this article I read. Also, he's highly involved in youth sports. That's the other, as a Division I athlete, if I could tell you one of the main places, like I say, I was essayed as a child, it happened at a church. At the other place I read into creeps was sports. Like truly. And it's like his daughter's rugby team. I can't remember, like it talks about it. And it's like, I'll put up the article again. Let me put a screenshot. It's like the local 7 news in KTVB 7. This is local Idaho, but yeah, here's the article I'm reading from. If you want to screenshot it, if you want to look it up, his name is Ryan Jenks. Yeah, but we need to worry about what bathroom trans people are in. Meanwhile, Diddlerton is running free.
And I don't think that they said anything about his religion. Like, I don't think I saw anything anywhere that said anything about his religion, but he is from Idaho. So, like, they do have a very big, very conservative Christian population. And I just pulled up his health place because I was unaware of it, like his mental health place, because I was unaware of it. I don't think it says anything about religion on it. They have 2 offices. But I don't think it says anything about religion or anything like that on it. It looks like a lot of the pages are down on their website right now, probably for a really good reason.
People are pissed on X. I did enjoy reading. People are furious at this man. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're like getting a lot of calls and people have a lot of feelings online about this man today. Like, I mean, he immediately bonded out. And think about it. Like, meanwhile, we're wasting our tax dollars trying to ban trans people from the bathroom they identify with. Why don't we ban white Christian men from women's bathrooms? This would be, I feel like this is what we should be concerned about. Like, right? That's how we fight crime, statistical correlations. And yeah, it's not the immigrants. It's not trans people. It's not the LGBTQIA. That's not who everyone needs to be worried about. Meanwhile, conservatives are protecting children. Like, right? You guys are protecting kids. It doesn't seem like it. Oh, and here, this is the final one I wanted to tell you guys. You guys might
Nail in the
recognize.
coffin. I'm so upset about this, you guys.
I know. I'm so upset too. This is like as if me making this outline wasn't bad enough this morning. And then I came across this. Do you guys, these are the Tate brothers. If you don't know what Andrew Tate is like being detained in Romania before, it's absolutely horrific. He's an sex trafficker. He's abusive to women physically, is accused of all sorts of SA, torture. I mean, some of this stuff is on video. It's horrific. And he's been being held in Romania, like awaiting trial. The actual Trump administration, Rick Grinnell, the Trump administration is lobbying to give them their passports back and allow them to travel while awaiting trial. This is real. And this is Yasher Ali, the same one who broke the story about Mash Slap. If you don't follow him, he's a really great reporter who I love. The Trump administration is pressuring Romania to lift restrictions on the Tate brothers. Tristan and Andrew Tate have been charged with, sexual misconduct, organized crime, and money laundering, among other things. This is what the Trump administration is up to, truly. And if you want to read this article and get more information about how really, truly effed up it is, I screenshot this. This is the actual article that is being referenced. I know, Coterie, I'm done too. Trust me, I saw this and I was like, this is what Trump is using the American government for, is to defend horrific people like Andrew Tate.
Well, and they benefit from Andrew Tate, right? Like that's exactly who they need speaking to their base. So they want him free. They don't want him in a prison.
The Trump administration has pressured Romanian authorities to lift travel restrictions on the self-described misogynist influencer Andrew Tate, a champion of the U.S. president who is facing criminal charges in Bucharest. Andrew and his brother Tristan Tate, who are dual U.S. and U.K. nationals, they become celebrity. If you don't know, they're very involved in the MAGA movement and the right-wing, manosphere. Right. They were arrested in 2022 for human trafficking, sexual misconduct, and money laundering. I wanted to read what actually happened, though, because it's so disturbing. Okay. The Tate's case was first brought up by U.S. officials in a phone call with the Romanian government last week, and then followed up by Trump's special envoy, they call him Rick, but Richard Grinnell, when he met with the Romanian foreign minister at the Munich security conference. The security conference where J.D. Vance was yelling Russian propaganda the whole time, where they basically said the U.S. isn't aligned with NATO anymore. That security conference, they are there lobbying for Andrew Tate to get his passport back with the Romanian government. A fourth person said a request was made to return the brothers' passports and allow them to travel while they wait for court proceedings to conclude. And this is the disturbing. They've known each other for a long time as they both serve. Wait, the spokesperson did not. Romanian courts are independent, and they're just, the Romanian people are basically saying, and operate based on the law. There's due process. But listen to Grinnell. This is the really disturbing part, because they're not hiding it. Grinnell said he had no substantive conversation with them. He said he saw me in the hallway in Munich, asked for a meeting, but there was no other follow-up encounter. Grinnell said, quote, "I support the Tate brothers as evident by my publicly available tweets."
Great. Say it with your whole chest. At least they're being honest about it, right? But I think it's really interesting. I don't know if we're on the same article. I think we are. If not, we're on companion article. It's funny because they say that they didn't know each other. One person, I can't remember who it was, but one of these guys, Grinnell, said that he knew him really well. And then the other guy was like, we don't know each other well at all. So I can't remember who said what, but one of the guys was like, oh yeah, we know each other really well. We work together in Berlin, blah, 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 blah. And the other guy was like, no, we don't know each other really well.
It's
So
this guy, his Romanian Foreign Minister Emil Herzenau declined to comment on his exchange with Grinnell, but his spokesperson said Herzenau initiated the meeting and that they had known each other for a long time, as they had both served as ambassadors in Berlin during the first Trump presidency. And the other guy's like, I don't know. Like, yeah, this is an
Grinnell,
embarrassment.
the US guy is like, no, we don't really know each other well at all. So it's like, what are you guys trying to cover up, number one? And also, someone in the comments had said, like, they're also like UK citizens or residents. They hold dual citizenship or dual residency. I'm not sure which. Citizenship and residency are different things in most places. But they do hold dual, and they are facing investigation for the exact same things in the UK and Britain, right? So Britain has asked to extradite them on these felony charges that are the exact same as what they're being investigated for in Romania. And Romania has basically said, you can have them when we're done with them, which is really common, right? States do the same thing in the US. If you're charged with something in two states, if Florida like physically has you, Florida's going to resolve your case. And then like, if Alabama says, give them, like, extradite them to us so we can charge them with stuff, Florida will be like, let us finish with them first, right? So that's essentially what they're doing. And Romania has says once their case resolves, regardless of how it resolves, right? If the case just goes away, if they actually get charged with stuff and get jail time, they'll then be extradited to the UK for prosecution. Now, Romania has said that they will extradite them, both of them, right? And that's something that a country has to agree to do. They have to agree to let people go, right? To go and be extradited. So Romania has said we will extradite them to the UK. I'm really interested after this conversation if suddenly that goes away. If suddenly Romania is like, we won't give them to you.
And just to give you an idea of what is happening, because this all ties to what's happening with Doge, right? Like all this USAID money that's been frozen. What Rick Grinnell is saying, and you have to watch this, and ProPublica's reporting on this, is they're basically saying that USAID money has been given to leftist progressive causes, to DEI things, right? Around the world. You can see him saying here, conservatives around the world were targeted. He's saying, our aid projects were given to leftist causes at the expense of Christian conservatives around the world, right? And now they're going, and who are the Christian nationalists around the world they're talking about? They're talking about Russia. They're talking about these authoritarian far-right alliances and far-right fringe parties that they're going to redirect all this money to. We should be very, very concerned about all of this. It's all related.
It's absolutely hilarious to me that they say that U.S. aid was targeted against conservatives and stuff around the world. Christian aid groups receive millions of dollars in U.S. aid, millions and millions of dollars in U.S. aid, and 81-ish% of U.S. Christians voted for Trump, or particularly evangelical Christians voted for Trump. And I'm not going to laugh at other people's misfortune, particularly if they're in an unsafe situation, but I will laugh at the people that are just annoyed over it. And you're hearing a whole lot of evangelical Christians coming out saying, I've been doing this mission work in Africa. I've been doing this mission work in like Nicaragua and in Brazil or whatever. And now we don't have funding. Our funding got taken away. That's not what we voted for Trump for. We didn't know that our funding was going to be taken away. So first of all, that's not true. Christian groups, right or wrong, right? Like, I don't think that you should be going to Africa to try to convert people. If you want to help people or provide people with medical aid, like Doctors Without Borders or something like that, fine. But like, these Christian groups are going there to provide aid in exchange for converting people, right? So it's just more white colonialism. But they get federal
there's a
dollars
documentary on Max called White Savior. Have you seen it? Dude, everyone should look up that. White Savior is a good one for the example of how if we want foreign aid, if we want to help African people, then we force them to it's like forced conversions.
Right. Like if you want our help, then you have to do this, or you have to say that you believe this, or you have to convert. Right. So it's ridiculous to say that it was against conservatives and that conservatives were targeted. Christian groups actually received millions and millions of dollars, and they're one of the ones crying about it now. Lots of Christians overseas are crying about the fact that they're losing their electricity, or they're not getting mosquito nets, or things like that, or they can't get health care and stuff. And again, I'm not laughing at people that are in legitimately dangerous situations and their life is at risk, right? But you voted for this. You did vote for this.
These are, Kyle Cheney was posting these again. He's doing a great job going through the court documents. Like, what's happening is people who get this US aid money, like, are submitting affidavits in these lawsuits of the freezing of the USAID money. And they're telling like medical horror story, oh, this one's actually really sad. This is about like they froze all medevac flights. And so this guy's wife was hemorrhaging and like couldn't get a medevac flight. And they got in touch with a U.S. senator to try to reverse it, but it was too late. And then this one is, the employee identified only as Terry Doe says he's been in touch with 25 other pregnant Foreign Service officers who are fearful their care will be cut off if the agency closes down completely on March 8th. So people are these are pregnant people who aren't able to get care and are in the field. And then this is someone living in apartheid South Africa. Another USAID employee, basically in an affidavit, says she and her spouse live in a U.S. funded compound in Pretoria, South Africa, and are about to run out of electricity. But I agree with Dani. It is kind of like, well, who did you guys vote for? And these stories, you can hear them, and I mean, there are hundreds of these stories floating around the internet of like foreign aid workers trapped places without resources, not knowing what to do, and like not able to get home. And I just wanted to
about like, go ahead.
No, that you go ahead. I'm just going to pull this article up.
They're being treated the same way that pregnant people in the U.S. are being treated. Right? Like we have in Idaho, we have women being life flighted to Washington to get abortion AB care because we have people being life flighted from Idaho to Washington to get AB care because Idaho will not provide that care, even if you're about to unalive, even if you're hemorrhaging. And in one of these stories, it's a gentleman that is writing the court case, that's writing in the court case. And he says, my wife and I went through fertility treatments. We spent tens of thousands of dollars. I can't remember how much he said. He's like $50,000 on fertility treatment. They already have one daughter. His wife got pregnant. She developed a complication. And they said, you're going to have to be medevaced to a larger medical facility, right? Like we can't take care of you here because we don't have the equipment and we don't have the facility to take care of you here. And they applied for U.S. aid to cover the cost of medevac. And the federal government told them there's no money for medevac. So then they appealed and applied again and said, like, this is a medical emergency, a true medical emergency. And multiple doctors are saying this pregnant person, I think she was like 31 weeks pregnant, needs to be life flighted. And they wouldn't do it. And then the complications got worse. She ended up having to be hospitalized. And now she's on strict bed rest until she delivers in April. And they can't life flight her anymore because it's too dangerous. So now she's stuck where she is. She can't be moved. She can't be life flighted. And the best they can do is like crisscross their fingers that she and the baby are going to survive and that there's not going to be some kind of a massive hemorrhage or a need for blood or something like that. Right? Like, can you imagine? It's terrifying enough being in the US where hopefully you can jump, like you might have to jump in a car and drive several hours, right? Or you might have to be life flighted with a life flight helicopter out of Idaho, but you're going to hopefully get the care that you need. Now, we definitely have people being unalived in places like Georgia and Texas because they didn't get the care they need, right? But these are people that went over on USA dollars, that went over there with the understanding that they were going to have the care that they needed to have. And now they're stuck in a foreign country, in a foreign hospital that has minimal services to take care of their needs. If she hemorrhages, she is in big trouble. And obstetric hemorrhages, There's a reason it's one of the leading causes of death in pregnancy. Obstetric hemorrhages can happen really quickly, and you can lose a lot of blood very quickly. People die very quickly from obstetric hemorrhage.
So sorry, I had to get my door really quick. Thank you guys for subscribing, Kuduri, Joanna. Thank you guys so much. I was gonna say that yeah, this is a ProPublica article, and it pretty much is detailing what I was talking about, like what will happen with U.S. aid. And the man in charge of it, who it is, it's another terrifying, like Rick Grinnell, it's a Christian nationalist whose goal is essentially to prop up like this alliance with Russia and far-right fringe groups. And like, I mean, it talks about how he already did this. Let me just remember his name because it's like Macorso, or I'm trying to remember this man's name. Oh, Morocco. M-A-R Morocco. Yeah. OCCO. And it talks about like how this man was a Christian nationalist and basically tried to prop up right-wing fringe groups when he was working in Bosnia and Herzegovina. He got kicked out of the State Department. He got moved to 4 different departments for doing shady things and is now basically in charge of USAID and is, according to people, not me, is doing what he already did once and got kicked out of the State Department for on a larger scale. So that is what they're looking to do. They're looking to take all this USAID money that was already legally, as we saw that judge's decision, you know, the judge said this money has been legally appropriated by Congress already. They're looking to reallocate it towards, you know, Christian groups, Christian nationalist groups. I wanted to show you guys what happened to AOC. Some of you guys may have seen I made a little thing about this, but I just have to show you guys this too. This is Tom Homan, the immigration czar. And this is him last night. Like, I was so disgusted when I saw this. This is him on Newsmax. And this man, like, goading him on to basically insult AOC. And if you don't know why Tom Homan, it's not the first time he did it, but it's like, it was just the way they were just laughing and it was cruel was ridiculous. They're mad at AOC because she's providing people information about the Constitution and due process who are being snatched up by ICE. Like,
I saw this too. I saved this with the intention of making a video on it later. But yeah, like, she's literally telling people about their rights. And this is him basically saying she shouldn't be allowed to tell people about their rights. Like, but he does it in like the most, well, you'll see.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, he's calling her stupid, and like it's AOC is the least stupid person. This comes from the people who have Anna Paulina Luda, who thinks the Warren Commission is still alive.
We know, yeah,
like truly, who invests, you know, she thinks the doctors who operated on JFK are still alive, and she's going
wonder how she's doing calling them in.
She's going to subpoena them. Well, Anna Paulina Luna could be talking about a seance. I was talking about this. If you know how crazy Anna Paulina Luna is, I would honestly believe that she would also be having a seance with our tax dollars. Like, if she was like breaking at psychics, like, I would not even be surprised. She thinks, I was playing a clip of her saying that George Washington was visited by an angel who warned him about communism. She believes some crazy things. But yeah, this is Tom Homan attacking AOC last night.
Well, first of all, I think she's, you know, I won't go after her on
Tom, please
TV
please do. Say what's on your mind. It's a holiday.
Look, she's the dumbest congresswoman ever elected to Congress, and she proves that every day. And look, bottom line is, I can't believe any member of Congress, Republican, Democrat, Independent, would want to educate criminal illegal aliens who are in the country illegally, been convicted of a violent crime, and have been ordered removed by an immigration judge after due process at great taxpayer expense. You got a congressman or congresswoman that does not want ICE to do the job that Congress has mandated them to do and funds them to do.
Also, he should stop, in my opinion. This is just my observation. Tom Homan appears intoxicated. I don't know if Well, but if you've ever heard Tom Homan talk, and the later at night it is, the more he is slurring. He always sounds like he's come from the dentist and is shot up with Novocaine. Like, quite honestly, you can't even speak, and you are insulting someone else's intelligence. And I'll just show you, like, AOC responded to this, I saw, and so I screenshotted it this morning. She said, "This is why you fight these cowards. The moment you stand up to them, they crumble. Hoban has nothing. The Fourth Amendment is clear, and I am well within my duties to educate people of their rights. He can threaten me with jail and call names all he wants. He's got nothing else." Amen. Certainly not the Constitution.
I also think it's funny when, like, anytime somebody is like he just said, she's the dumbest congressperson we've ever had. You sure about that? You sure about that? Because the Republicans had a Senate candidate that said that the female body has ways of shutting down pregnancy if it's a legitimate R word. We also had a Republican representative say that we don't need essay exceptions on AB bans because women can just go get cleaned out with a kit at the doc. Like, are you also, if a woman got pregnant via essay, that's what God intended? Like, really? She's the dumbest one, huh? Out of all the stuff y'all have said in public with your whole chest?
Now, remember the TikTok hearing when we learned no one in Congress understands how to log on to the internet? That was one of the most disturbing ones.
Or how Wi-Fi works.
Or how Wi-Fi works. None of them understood that Singapore was its own country, right? Like, did you serve for the Chinese government? Sir, I'm from Singapore. Did you serve in the Chinese army? Sir, I'm from Singapore. She's the dumbest one, huh?
Basic geography skills. No, that was so funny. The TikTok was going. Have you guys seen the clip of Boebert when, like, the very handsome black head of the EPA, well, Biden's head of the EPA, he's gone now. I can't remember his name, but he's like just a genius, like PhD scientist. And Boebert was like trying to talk about Chevron deference. And was, oh my God. And he was just like trying to swallow his laughter. And she's just like, "What are you going to do? Like, you're in violation. The Supreme Court said you're in violation." He's like, "We're going to comply with Chevron deference." And she's like, "What are you going to do? Are you going to the EPA can't exist. The Supreme Court decided the EPA can't exist." And he's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about or what you think Chevron deference is, but you're wrong." It was the funniest hearing. I would do anything for AOC to be our president. Yeah, she's great. I feel so sorry. That's what you get for being an attractive, intelligent woman in this society. 100%. And all I say is, like, and for me too, like, I just see it when people insult, or insulting you in that way as like an attractive woman, or saying you're either ugly or saying you're unintelligent. It's just an admission of insecurity. It's, you know what I mean? Like, Tom Homan, why don't you scream, "I'm a tiny, insecure man, like, who cries alone at night"? Like, it's just an admission that you're deeply insecure. Because I'm secure enough to be able to say, it's very obvious to me how intelligent AOC is. And I'm intelligent and secure enough in myself to not be threatened by her. It's the same way they come after Nancy Pelosi. Like, tell me without telling me you're threatened by strong, intelligent women. I'm smart enough to know that Nancy Pelosi is intelligent and respect her for it.
Yeah, like, there's plenty of, and people always say, "Oh, well, you guys never do anything against other Democrats." There's plenty of Democrat women senators that I don't super love. Like, they're not my favorite. I want, like, Elizabeth Warren comes to mind. Like, you've made a shit ton of money. You need to retire and make room for younger people, right? Like, I don't abhorrently hate her, but I think that some people need to get out and make more room for other people. And they're just not my favorite, right? But I can recognize that they are very intelligent women. I can recognize that they are women that have had great ideas and some ideas that I don't agree with, right? But I can recognize that they are intelligent women. Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, these are not intelligent women, right? Like,
Nancy bathroom monitor base. So, well, by nature of supporting the Conservative Party, you're not intelligent. It's biting off your nose to spite your face. Like, oh yeah, that's one of these clips I want. God, this is a perfect segue. This is what I wanted to show you guys. Like, this is how dumb women are who support conservatives, right? This is another Christian nationalist MAGA podcast where they're talking about, like, you know how, so Riley Gaines is that swimmer and she's like a MAGA spokesperson for like face for the anti-trans women in sports, movement, like, because she's a swimmer or something who like another swimmer who was trans beat her. I don't know. She goes around and like campaigns for MAGA. And these men are on this podcast. And this is what I'm saying about Christian nationalism. You're never going to be picked. If you are a woman supporting Christian nationalism, then you are an idiot because they don't want you to have any power. You are property under Christian nationalism. You don't have rights. You're not your own person. And so this is basically, they're mad at Riley Gaines. And I talk about this with Nancy Mace all the time, how actually as many people on the MAGA's like right fringe hate her because they're like, while Nancy Mace is like, I'm being discriminated against by trans people. They're like, no, we're being discriminated against, like, by you. Like, you're ruining it. Like, they don't want women playing sports. Like, they don't even believe in Title IX.
Whenever you see them promote like Riley Gaines or whatever to try to, take some shots at the trans contagion or whatever, and you just see her everywhere, and it's like, no, actually, like, I want to get rid of Title IX, and that's the old right position from like the very beginning, and you are reinforcing it. You're saying like this is the most bedrock fundamental thing is that we have women's sports, and it's absurd.
Great job, Nancy Mace and Riley Gaines, supporting these men, getting other white women to vote for these people that don't even want you to be able to play sports. Oh, I know, and that word contagion is vile. These are vile people, but I'm just saying, like, to be a woman and be part of the conservative movement, they don't want you. You're never going to be picked. They don't want you to have rights. They want you to be chattel.
It's kind of like, so I have two comments. One of them is it kind of reminds me of Pearl, right? Like Pearl comes out constantly and she's always like, oh, women are awful. Feminism is awful. Like men are so great. No one's picking you, right? And like all of these men are like, oh, we just need conservative women. Pearl's still single, guys. She's still single. She's out there. But they don't pick her because they don't want her. And a lot of men have come out and been like, she's too mouthy. She's too opinionated. They don't like you, right? Which leads me to, if anyone in the chat hasn't, I have actually a couple videos about this, although they're probably further down on my timeline. But I teach a lot about ambivalent sexism theory. And ambivalent sexism theory is this idea that there's two co-occurring forms of sexism. One of them is hostile sexism. And that's kind of like the overt, like, the R word jokes, the sexist jokes, the believing that women truly shouldn't have equal rights. This is where we get SA and grape culture from, right? But then there's benevolent sexism. And benevolent sexism puts women on a pedestal. You can think of it as like the Madonna whore dynamic, right? And benevolent sexism says women are soft, they're beautiful, they're feminine. I absolutely am so sick of seeing on social media this like divine feminine. That's just benevolent sexism. It's literally just the other side of the coin. And what we find in research is benevolent sexism is just as harmful to women's rights, women's development, and their mental and emotional well-being because it keeps them in a subservient role. The goal of hostile sexism is to punish you when you step out of line. But if you're a good girl, if you serve the patriarchy, if you fall in line with benevolent sexism, if you believe that men deserve to be above women, if you believe that men deserve sexual access to women as long as they're providing for them, right? If you're a good girl under patriarchy, you'll get the benefits. And those benefits are a little bit of adjacency to power. Maybe we'll put you in a little bit of position of power and you'll get protection, but it's patriarchal protection that's going to get pulled from you so fast, and they're going to flip to hostile sexism when they don't like what you're saying. But you were never meant to win this game, so the goalposts are going to keep moving. You're never going to be good enough. You're constantly going to flip between this, and that's what's happening in this clip. She tried to adhere to benevolent sexism. She tried to say, I'm a good woman. I support the patriarchy. I believe that there's only women and there's no such thing as cis women and trans women, blah, blah, blah. They aren't picking you. The leopard will eat your face, because as many men out there will prop you up on a pedestal and say, what a good woman. This is a woman that we want to raise our children. There's just as many men that say, if you get too much power or you're too mouthy, we're going to say shit like this, right? You're not meant to win this game. Stop fucking playing.
Amen. God, preach. But that is such a great way to describe it, because you don't know how to describe it. But and then it's like the turn of from benevolent sexism. Like, if I get with the program, because that's when I was younger and I couldn't get out of the evangelical cult I was in and how I was being raised. Like, flight was not an option, right? Like, I was trapped, so I had to fawn. I had to get with the program and be like, well, if I agree, if I go along with it, if I'm the best Christian like daughter, then maybe they'll leave me alone, right? And the truth is it's true. How you know if you have people who support you is if you're not marching to their tune, right? If you have a contrary thought or idea, like the day I said, hey, I think I like boys and girls, right? All of a sudden I was demon possessed. I needed an exorcism. Like, they don't support you, even if you feel like they do. They support you in as far as you carry their message and spout their message, and they can use you as a human shield. See, here's a woman that agrees with us. We must not be misogynist. See, here's a black man that agrees with us. We must not be racist. That is what you are, literal human shields for spreading, the ideology of Western civilization, which is patriarchy and white supremacy, two different sides of the same coin.
Yeah. And I did see someone in the comments said, like, that's not what divine feminism is, or what divine femininity is. Divine femininity is literally just reinforcing gender roles, y'all. There's no, what's femininity? What's masculinity? These are all social constructs. And I'm not putting down anyone's spiritual beliefs. Like, if you truly think that it has made you feel empowered as a woman, I'm not stealing that from you. But the rhetoric surrounding divine feminine is supposed to be this way of, like, balancing patriarchal and traditional female attributes within yourself. And it's supposed to bring you some kind of spiritual gain. And it's balancing these masculine and feminine. Well, what's seen as masculine, right? Being task oriented, being intelligent, being strong, being responsible, being focused. Those are not masculine traits. Those are just human traits. What's being feminine, right? Being reflective, being soft, being yielding, being open, being supportive, being introspective, being empathetic. These are not feminine traits, right? So benevolent sexism is also promoted as being female empowerment. Right? They're like, oh, this is empowering for women. It allows you to step into your feminine role. It's billed as being empowering. It's not. It's just putting you back into a box. It's just creating more gender roles. Right?
You're one step away from like the twin flame insanity. When I hear people talk about divine feminine, I'm like, you're one step away from telling me you found your twin flame. Like, literally, you're a stone's throw. Like, that's what those twin flame wackos believe, which, if you haven't seen the documentaries about what I'm talking about, that's another good one. Look up the documentaries about the twin flame cult. But that's what they believe. There's the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And basically, you stalk that person. Do you know about this? They like stalk.
Yeah.
And like, even if you're like abused by the person or whatever, they're like, doesn't matter. And like, what happens within the twin flame cult, because they believe in like only a divine feminine can be with a divine masculine, they have people change their genders. Have you seen this? Like, forced gender conversions. Yeah. For the twin flame cult. I think it's
I think
run
there's
by
a documentary on it, isn't there?
a couple in Michigan. Yeah, there's two different ones. I think there's one
I
on
only saw
Netflix
one.
and one like on Prime. And man, should you watch these? Because sometimes you hear people be like, "Oh, I found my twin flame." I don't always know if people are just saying that because like it's a word they heard, or if they understand like what that actually is and how horrifically toxic like it is, and like the divine feminine and all of that. Like, I just think,
That's the
I
thing.
think to me, like, if there was a positive way to look at divine feminine, but again, to me, yeah, gender is always going to be a construct. But me as someone who was born a woman, it's just strength. Like, I just see absolutely like pure strength in women, you know, and also, and like quiet strength, like not needing to like be aggressive or shout it to the hilltops, but just in every way, like being able to like perform under pressure and like better than men. Like men are constantly having emotional outbursts and trying to fight each other, and women are just literally getting the job done quietly all the time. Like that's how I look at
Well,
like feminine energy.
I would argue that that quiet strength is actually the more healthy strength, right? Because we see so many
100%.
men, right? Like we see so many men that like espouse like, oh, I'm strong, blah, blah, blah. What they're equating with strength is domination, right? They're equating
Abuse, yeah.
violence, aggression, abuse, right? They're equating domination. That's also what they equate with protection, right? Being dominated, dominating somebody else. I say this all the time, but men have a different definition of respect. When women say, I need you to respect me, they mean respect me as a human being, as a fellow human being. When men say, I won't respect you unless you respect me, they're saying, I won't respect your humanity unless you respect my power over you, unless you respect my position over you. Those are two different definitions of respect. And it's sort of like that, right? If you have to use aggression and domination and submission in order to keep power or strength, that's not strength, right? That's bullying and abuse. But if you have strength through having respect of other people, through people believing that like you make good choices and you're a
You know, the
kind
paper
leader
is
that
more
will listen to
sophisticated
them,
now than
right? Like
computers.
that's totally different. It's the difference between like Felice and I have talked about being raised in very authoritarian households and being afraid of your parents versus having respect for your parents because you know you can come to them and talk to them about anything. These are not the same thing and they don't produce the same relationship dynamics.
100%. Like ruling through fear and abuse doesn't make you strong.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you a leader. People like when people like follow you voluntarily, look at you as an example and think, oh, that's how you should be, people should be doing it. Then you are a leader, right? Like Trump rules through fear, through intimidation, through manipulation. If you have to constantly pathologically lie to get people to follow you, like Christians do, like the conservatives do, why can't you guys just tell the truth about what you're up to and see if people like it? They're cowards. Oh, and by the way, I looked up the one on Prime about the twin flame documentary. I'm like, everyone needs to watch. It's called Desperately Seeking Soulmate, Escaping Twin Flames Universe. And then there's another one, and one goes into like the forced like gender conversions they do, but I can't remember which one. But that's the one on Prime, Desperately Seeking Soulmate, Escaping Twin Flames Universe. And it's truly
It's like
terrifying.
It's basically a cult.
No, no, and they like have people still like trapped in Michigan in a house. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like it's crazy town. Like we might need to save these people still. Like last I checked, and I watched both the documentaries. Like they're still in that house. I'm gonna look up the one on Netflix too, really quick, because they're really worth a watch.
And I mean, I think like it's all.
Oh, it's called Escaping Twin Flames. The one on Netflix is called Escaping Twin Flames.
And I mean, it all speaks to. I mean, even something like these cults, right? Like it all speaks to the level at which these leaders are able to manipulate, and we see it. It's why Trump is in the position he's in. It's why like literally people who don't have a dollar to their name are falling all over themselves to defend Elon. Like, like there's a video that's going viral right now where it's like, just think about this. If you have, oh God, now I'm going to fuck it up. Oh, it was talking about like seconds in a million. So to get to 1 million seconds, it takes 12 days. To get to 1 billion seconds, it takes 32 years. Like, people who seem to think that they are going to be able to be rich like these leaders, because they see that dominance and that money and that, or that pretend money.
I know the video you're talking about. Is it the guy with the red cups?
No, it's a woman.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's another one going viral that like ways people are trying to like describe to this cult that you're never, or the rice is another one where you're never going to have this much money, and enough wealth has already been accumulated at the top of the economy that like there's nothing that can be done. There's no upward mobility.
Yeah, and they're lying so much at this point. Like, this is the thing that's driving me crazy. It's like, I'm getting into like, you get these people in the comments on videos just being like, oh, Elon's finding all this waste and all this fraud. And I'm like, prove it. Prove it. Show your work. Show it. Show me. Well, he's posting screenshots on X, really, on Twitter. And you want me to, like, that's not evidence, first of all. Secondly, like, y'all are just like, trust me, bro. Like, you're all part of the Trust Me Bro group. And I remember very distinctly in 2015, I posted something, I wish I could find it on my old Facebook account, where it was when, maybe I've talked about this before, it was when fake news was becoming a really popular thing to say, and alternative facts was becoming really popular to say. And I just randomly posted one day, I said, this is, the end game is clear. They want you to take them at their word. They want to get rid of any sort of belief or credibility in any mainstream media, any news outlet. They want to get rid of your trust in all of those, so you just are left with taking them at their word, and then they can manipulate you and say whatever they want. And we're seeing that come to fruition now, where it's like, he's getting into the IRS and can get all of our information, and trust me, bro, it's fine. And it's the same with like these cults. Like, it all comes together, right, with these cults where it's these people who are like, they're convincing people that are vulnerable, that are desperate for community, that have trauma in their past, who for whatever reason are drawn to these cults. And twin flame stuff is just really bizarre to me in general. This idea that you're like basically linked to another person in the universe or whatever, crazy. And, but like, they're so desperate for that community, kind of like even MAGA. Like, I feel like a lot of those people were so desperate to feel part of something that they were that much much more easily brought in. That's where they get them, being able to get these vulnerable people, lie to them, convince them that you wouldn't lie to them, so that when you are lying to them, they eat it up, to where they'll go to the mat with you. They will fight with you. They will defend it to the nines, even when you give them actual facts. Like, the cognitive dissonance is wild to me, because one of my favorite quotes, it's easier to fool someone than convince them they've been fooled. Like, that's where we're at. And these cults are no different. And it's just, I'm going on a little tangent, but like, it's all the same. And we see it. And all these people are the same kind of people who can get into one of these other cults, are the ones who blindly follow that guy.
Just wanted to show this article, and on the people's receipts, we went through this all last week. Like, actually, people have forensic accountants and real fact checkers, part of the National Fact Checkers Association, have gone through all of Elon Musk's posts. Glenn Kessler is one of my favorite fact checkers in the United States. He's fabulous. They had a forensic accountant go to the White House and ask them to dispute, because Trump, when they asked, like, hey, where do we get your real numbers on this? You keep saying you found all this. This article details it all out. It's all a lie, right? It's all detailed out in this article. They went through every single thing on Elon's X page that he said was alleged fraud, right? First of all, it's not fraud. It's appropriated by Congress. It's definitely not. And then like waste and abuse, that's opinion. But of all the things he actually has that can be verified, it adds up to 2 billion, not 789 million or almost 789 billion. And those numbers come from reports done by Biden's the inspector generals that Trump fired during Biden's administration. Like, it is all a lie. Everything. If you believe that Elon Musk is trying to help you, Read this article. It's all false. And I get it. He has 200 something million followers and spreads literally. Someone was telling me that he was tweeting like 30 times, like every 5 minutes or something. So how do you overcome that like flood of misinformation and disinformation? I don't know. I just read. I'm just a reading person. And then you will know that none of it's true. It's not true. Right? He's dismantling agencies that have him under investigation. Like, it's a joke. Anyways, you guys, I need to go because I have to get to the doctor again for my dog bite situation by 2:00. I have a telemed appointment, I think, in 10 minutes.
Felice was attacked by a dog. I'm sure she talked about it at the very beginning and I wasn't here. Running is just not safe. I swear.
Well, I mean, we can have final thoughts and stuff. I just am saying it out loud that I just need to make sure I'm on my doctor's appointment because I'm seeing somebody about a rabies vaccine.
We want you on top of that.
Yeah, those hurt really bad. So like,
I know they told me that's why. Well, what I'm actually trying to do is just confirm, like I'm trying to talk to the police and find out, like they suggested, like rather than getting it, they're like, you should just confirm that dog had a rabies vaccine. They're like, it is not worth it. It's 3 to 5 shots, like over a month. Yeah. They explained it to me in gross detail yesterday. They're like, I can't give you this advice legally, but if it was me, I would do everything to not get it. And I was like, okay.
And also, if someone's dog bit you, that person should want you to know, like, hey, my dog is rabies vaccinated and you're safe, right? Like, as a responsible dog owner, you should want like, obviously the dog got out and bit you in some way, so questionable. But like, accidents happen, dogs jump over fences, all that kind of stuff. Like, if you are a responsible dog owner, you should want the person that your dog got into to be like, yes, this is not, like, my dog is vaccinated, my dog's had distemper, all the kinds of things, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Well, yeah, you would think.
Super final thought on this whole like Musk and Twitter thing. So he was posting like so much through the presidential election. We know that's what got pushed out there. He also controls the algorithm on X, right? Remember? So I was just working in Europe and was talking with some people from Germany, and they're having their election next week. I think it's on the 26th. And Musk is getting involved in their election with their far right Yahtzee party, right?
AFD.
And Vance just gave the AFD. Vance just gave a speech yesterday in Germany where he supported the AFD and said that people should be supporting them and that there shouldn't be a firewall against working against them. So as I'm working in Europe with a couple German people, right, they're sitting there being like, we are terrified. We are absolutely terrified because only 20% of people support the AFD, which is way too many people already, right? But with the way that Musk controlled your election and got out misinformation and was able to get so much stuff out so quickly, people in Germany are legitimately and actively terrified right now. And it's because Musk is starting to get involved in their elections as well.
I'm actually leaving for Germany in a couple of weeks, and it'll be interesting because I'm keeping a really close eye on that election because I'm like, I mean, I'm already like anxious because we seem to have a plane crash every single day. So it's like hopping on a 9-hour flight or whatever to Germany has me, excited. But yeah, it'll be interesting and I'm hoping to have conversations with people when I'm over there just to get, their thoughts on what's happening here and like, on just because I think that's what that interconnected thing we always come back to. What we do here spreads like a fucking virus. And so we're seeing that. We're seeing these uprisings in these alt-right groups. And we're seeing our own government officials, our own vice president, like extending a hand to them, to these extremist groups. And it's like that shouldn't be normal and that shouldn't be okay.
And under the guise of Christian persecution, when you listen to how they're framing it, they're saying Christians have been persecuted. The woke leftist U.S. government has been promoting woke leftist ideas, and we're gonna save the Christians of Europe by propping up these far right fringe groups, which align with Russia. That's what Russia is doing, right? Interfering in all these Eastern European elections. Now we're doing it in Western Europe. It's terrifying to watch. Yeah. Anywho, okay. So, who do you guys want to raid? Someone who's live? I know someone said, "Are we going to raid someone?" Yeah, I don't know. Let me check. I have to see who's live. I can't see who's live inside TikTok Studio. So, you guys, Lainey, yeah, let's raid Lainey. Love Lainey. She's the best. I've learned so much from Lainey. Who do you guys want to raid? Lainey or Mishi? Mishi, we've raided Lainey twice and Pickles like 3 times, so maybe we should raid Mishi. Let's raid Mishi because I keep raiding the same 2 people over and over again. Let's raid Mishi that way. Tell her I said hi. You don't know who Mishi is? Oh, well, you should. Yeah, she's great. What's her handle now? She goes through like so many accounts. What is Mishi's handle? I mean, you could just search Mishi and she comes up. Yeah, I mean, I can't. Yeah, pretty much. Oh yeah, let's raid Mishi.
Go raid Mishi. Mishi for change right now.
Oh, it's Mishi for change. Yeah, Mishi for number 4 change. In case you don't know and you haven't followed her, she's amazing. She has these like little Trump hands and like. Have you seen her? When she wears the red sweatshirt with like the tiny Trump hands on the back. Oh my God, that is the funniest thing I've ever. I could watch that for days and never get tired. It makes me smile. Thank you guys so much for watching the broadcast. We will see you guys next week and see you guys tomorrow for the People's Receipts at 11:30 Pacific time, 2:30 Eastern. Have such a great day.